Guys, it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon, not morning, because we're starting this at dang near 1 o'clock p.m. So you guys know what that means. Your favorite chaotic triumvirate, your favorite truculent trio is back to deliver you more football analysis here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. As always, bringing you in as I try to come up with a different name to call us every single week. I'm kind of starting to run out of it here. Bringing you into the show, Iceman and Jerg. Joining me, as always, my two compatriots. First, at the bottom of your screen, the best ukulele player this side of the East Coast, Justin Zuckman Zucker. How we doing, bud?
A little rusty on my ukulele skills, but I'm getting back there, so.
Well, to be fair, you're playing a what's the proper word to say? Your ukulele isn't like exactly stringed to perfection. Like it's more difficult for you.
It's a souvenir.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah. So we cost you like $7.99 at the souvenir shop.
I would have. It cost me. I didn't buy it.
Oh, there you go.
It
would cost you that.
Yeah. There we go. And speaking of which, our favorite man, the backwards wearing hat fellow he is, the owner of Sandoval, and the owner of what I would still say is probably the greatest segment in show history, Podfather Rick. Rick, how are we doing?
I looked up the definition of truculent, and it does describe me to a T. It's belligerent or aggressively defiant. And there's nothing more that describes me than that word right there, truculent. I am a very truculent human being. Thank you very much for that.
And nothing explains the show better.
Oh, my God. No, my defiance and my aggression, absolutely. No, I'm good otherwise, It's not exactly a beautiful day because it's a little on the cloudy side, but, it's a day. It's another day for another round of football. And
any day we get to talk football is a beautiful day, Rick.
And any day we're above ground is, technically I'm below the ground because I'm on the basement, but, that explains a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Is it a good day or bad, Rick?
Spin the wheel and find out.
Oh boy. Well, while I set up a wheel of chaos to eventually decide if it's a good or a bad day for Rick today, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the show itinerary, mind you. Our favorite round of the playoffs just passed by. The reason why it's our favorite round because it's called Wild Card Weekend, which Wild Card is yet again another
super Wild Card Weekend.
Super Wild Card Weekend, which is really kind of one of the perfect synonyms to describe the show. It's a super wild show, and so it's only right that we enjoy Super Wild Card Weekend. We will get to the Super Wild Card Weekend games, two in particular that really tickled the fancies, you could say, in terms of helping out the show. Because you could look by the title of the show. You know why we're here. You know what we really want to talk about. But we also have 4 other games from the weekend to discuss. We're then going to do a bit of a look into the divisional round, see what we got. What can the winners do to try to move on further, or will it all be for naught because, the top seeds are going to do top seed things and potentially win. What else? We'll break that all down later in the show. But before that, as always, you guys know the show tagline, fun, football, chaos. Before we get to the football, and of course we save the chaos for the end of the proceedings, we start with a little bit of fun. And we're going to switch up the order a little bit. We got to change up here, boys, because, as the once great, well, still great, actually, Paul Levesque, Hunter Hearst Helmsley himself said, you either adapt or perish. So we are starting the show in a different manner today. We are beginning with Rick's mind-blowing fact of the week.
This is the original one, guys. This was the start. This was the genesis of this segment right here. And I had a control group focus group that I tested this on, aka my wife. And when I told her what the fact was, I texted it to her and I said, you're not going to believe this. And I told her the fact. I got 6 or 7 ellipses points in the first text back. And the second one was, yeah, you're right. I don't believe this. So to that effect. So here we go. This is about movies, gentlemen. The 2022 Golden Globes awarded the Best Animated Film Award to Pinocchio, which I'm sure you know the Pinocchio, right? This was Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, of course. I'm sure you know who Guillermo del Toro is, I'm sure. So, in Guillermo del Toro's crazy twisted fantasies of Pinocchio, there's a scene where the puppet Pinocchio does a skit that makes fun of Benito Mussolini. There's a character in the movie, Mussolini. Now, gentlemen, the mind-blowing fact of the week is this. In the Golden Globe animated film winner, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, SpongeBob SquarePants played Benito Mussolini. The voice of Tom Kenny was the voice of the Italian dictator. sufficiently. When I found that out, I wept. Not because I wanted to see the movie.
I think the fact was so mind-blowing it blew out his connection.
Yeah, right.
Rick, you came out too strong with this one.
The great Tom Kenny. He's
Fiesta Twist.
This segment brought to you by Old El Paso Fiesta Twist, not a real sponsor. Yeah, that throws you for a loop. It really does.
God.
I mean, yeah. Listen, the one thing that I cannot imagine is SpongeBob doing the fascist salute, but in some deep corner of YouTube or the internet, that's somewhere. So,
I'm not gonna lie. I feel like I've seen it before. SpongeBob is put in a lot of different weird things.
Yeah.
So
creepy pastas and all that.
I'm sure if we search deep enough somewhere out there on the internet, it might not be on YouTube, but maybe somewhere in the internet, there is a video of someone in a SpongeBob voice with speaking Italian to order the troops down the borders of Italy and down and up the borders of Italy to help out in World War II. I'm sure.
Listen, Chaplin did Hitler, so maybe this is the next thing. Tom Kenny doing Mussolini, I guess. But
what a stark evolution in his career,
right?
I always put Charlie Chaplin and Tom Kenny in the same category too. So,
I mean, how can you not? Let's be real here.
So, of course, two men synonymous with career choices, for sure.
Yeah.
So, well, that was certainly a mind-blowing fact, and that's the fun part of the mind-blowing fact. Very much similar to the Rostrum podium. It doesn't need to be about sports, ladies and gentlemen. It could literally be about anything. And Rick came out strong with these first 2 weeks, which very, very much like the show after the Christmas special. Who knows if we're going to go up or down from here? But we can only hope to
go. We're clinging to that life raft, man. This ship has become a Poseidon, and we're trying to get to the top again.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've been plummeting since that. Right?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, no. Fun fact on Twitter that was our most viewers we had since the Christmas episode. So last week.
There you go.
Stunks going up, boys. And honestly, for pure hilarity, let's have a before the show meeting on the show now. I think to make it even funnier, Rick's got to bring out a random product to be the sponsor for the segment every single.
Oh yeah, listen, I can find random stuff to bring out as a sponsor. I got the world is my oyster in canvas, so basically I can do all of that. I think it works.
One of two things is going to happen with each sponsor. Either we're finally going to get our first ever real sponsor on the show, which would be sick, by the way, or we're going to be banned from ever being able to sponsor the product.
And this transition is brought to you by Flamingos.
Speaking of transitions, ladies and gentlemen, let's transition. Let's continue to have some fun here. Justin has a set. Of course, he's our usual. He's the gameskeeper. He's the games master. He's the Hagrid of this show, except I don't know how many keys he necessarily keeps on him, and he doesn't have the beard to match Hagrid nor the height of Robbie Coltrane, RIP to the legend himself, but he's the gameskeeper and the fun master on the show. So Justin, what do we got for some NFL Would You Rather this week?
All right. So it's a little less traditional of a Would You Rather, but what would be the biggest upset of the weekend? I'm not even going to give you, there's only 4 choices.
Oh, okay.
So let me ask you this way. Every lower seeded team is an underdog, correct?
In theory. Not in theory.
Pretty sure.
Well, okay, so let's eliminate the Bills-Bengals game because
that would go either way.
Honestly, that's a pick-em.
Yeah, well, Buffalo's actually favored by 5.5, which is not the biggest spread. I mean, not the lowest spread. There's actually a lower one. But yeah, I agree with you. That one would be it could go either way in my mind.
Just because both those teams were so good this year, and obviously the game that they were going to have against each other was, unfortunately, with everything that DeMar Hamlin had to go through, that's what, that game happened. That's the story of that game now. So you're talking about Jacksonville, Kansas City, the Giants, Eagles, and Dallas, San Francisco, rather. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to pick Dallas over San Francisco. So San Francisco is, I think, the best team of the ones that are remaining in this NFL playoff field. They're the team that has been unstoppable over the past little bit. And Dallas, they needed a response from the Tampa Bay game, and they got it. But the question really is, was that the Dallas team that you expect to see week in and week out? It's not. I mean, a week prior, they were schooled by Sam Howell, which is a phrase that shouldn't be said, in any context, but they were schooled by Sam Howell. The other two games, the funny thing about Jacksonville, Kansas City is I can see Jacksonville kind of sneaking away with a win because there's that hype over Trevor Lawrence being undefeated on Saturdays. And so that could play into a role of it. And the Giants-Eagles game, look, I have said this time and time again, it is hard to beat the same team 3 times in one season. It really is. It's one of those things where it's so difficult to do that. So Dallas, they need to right things. They need to show that they proved that they're a better team than what we saw at the end of the regular season. And if they go into San Francisco and they beat the 49ers and they do it, let's say they do it on a Brett Maher field goal. Nobody needs it more than Brett Maher does, I think. If they do that there and they win that game, I think that's the biggest shock because, sure, they think about that. They, as a 5 seed, could possibly host the NFC title game if the Giants beat the Eagles. Because, again, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. That, I think, is the biggest upset potential for this weekend.
Fair argument. I'm going to be the conventional one. I will go with Jaguars over the Chiefs. Yes, obviously, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit here. The Jaguars' comeback against the Chargers was outstanding, and there is the hype around Trevor Lawrence now, which, he's had this hype basically since he was a high school senior. He was the heir apparent of taking over the college game, winning a national championship, making it to back-to-back national championship game. So, look, that all makes sense, but the Chiefs, to me, are just at a completely different level compared to their compatriots in the AFC, especially with the Jaguars. Like, we have seen a number of Chargers-Chiefs games where no matter what the circumstances are, Justin Herbert could have one rib left, his offensive line could be all third stringers, and somehow it's going to be a touchdown difference because just there's something about Herbert versus Mahomes that the games only ever end with a touchdown or less. I can't think of a single blowout game on either side since it's been Herbert versus Mahomes in those matchups. Like, there's just something about it that gets the best of both guys, especially the skill position players. Whereas with this one, again, all respect, I was very much considering picking the Jaguars last week before ultimately siding with the Chargers. Oh, how wrong I was. And I
in the first half.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that first half, Brendan Staley thought the same thing, and oh Lord. So, but again, we'll get to that in a bit. But at the end of the day, I consider the Chiefs right now are the football equivalent to what the Astros are in baseball, and I noted this going into this past World Series.
Cheaters.
The AL runs through the Houston Astros in Major League Baseball for the last 6 or 7 seasons.
I was going to say, if you were about to call Pat Mahomes Jose Altuve, we're going to fight off camera.
No. and the AFC has ran through the Kansas City Chiefs over the last couple of seasons. Either the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl or the team that beats the Kansas City Chiefs makes it to the Super Bowl. That's how it goes. So you are facing, as Jacksonville, you're facing the standard bearer of your conference now, the new standard bearer, because the Patriots are dead and Tom Brady left the AFC. You're facing the new standard bearer of your conference. All due respect to the Chargers, they ain't the Chiefs. Brendan Staley is not Patrick Mahomes. As much as I like Justin Herbert more than most people probably do, he's not a social media quarterback like some third-rate Fox analysts want to call him. He's way more than that. At the same time, Patrick Mahomes is the probably soon-to-be 2-time MVP because I can't think of who else to give it to this season aside from him. He is the guy. That is the kingpin that you are chasing in the AFC that you're going to be chasing for the next decade if you're the Jags. And maybe one day when we get a Jags-Chiefs AFC championship game, and Lord, did I never think I'd say that sentence before the season, but here we are.
Right.
If one day we get Jags-Chiefs, maybe in the future, maybe next season it'll happen. Maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line. And maybe the Jags will have a realistic chance to win when they continue to build that roster, when they eventually fire Trent Baalke and all that. But until then, this Jaguars team, I don't think they can do it. I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout, but I don't think that they are just naturally, talently outclassed by the Kansas City Chiefs. It's as simple as that. Now, sometimes can talent fail you in certain spots? It certainly has for Kansas City before. I'm not calling them perfect because obviously we've seen in the past they're not. But you're facing something completely different than the Chargers. You're facing something completely different from the Tennessee Titans, who you had to beat to get into the postseason. This Chiefs team is miles ahead of the Chargers and is light years ahead of the Tennessee Titans. Then again, I would probably say that for the Bills and Bengals over the Titans too, but irregardless. So to me, the biggest upset would be the Jaguars, because then it would prove what I just said. The last 4 or 5 years, either you beat the Chiefs and you go to the Super Bowl, or the Chiefs beat up on everyone and they make it to the Super Bowl. So if the Jaguars beat the Chiefs by osmosis, according to the last 4 or 5 years, Jaguars are going to the Super Bowl. So what is that really going to happen this year? Who knows? And I don't remember who it was. I would try to look it up real quick, but I don't want to derail the show. But there was an official sports Instagram page, like one of the bigger networks, I think, that tried to do a comparison between the last year's Bengals and this year's Jaguars team, and they put in the graphic, face the Chiefs in the divisional round. I just want to point out, Chiefs were the AFC Championship game with the Bengals last year. So to that network that posted that graphic, you double check your information, please. But aside from that, to me, the biggest upset would be the Jags over the Chiefs. I don't see them being good enough this year to beat the standard bearer of the conference.
Listen, the CW network doesn't do football. They're doing live golf now, so they don't know what the hell they're talking about.
I want to check to see real quick who was the network. I got to throw I got to throw the shade properly here.
Yes,
Rick. 2 things. If you do fight Jurg off camera and you don't record it, I'm going to be upset because that's ratings, man. And
okay, go ahead. Your second point.
So, you're going to be in the doghouse, my guy. Mrs. Podfather is going to be very upset with you that you did not pick the Giants as an upset. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, I didn't say I didn't pick them as an upset. I said the biggest upset this weekend.
Okay.
There's a difference. There's a big difference there.
You don't think it would be a bigger upset that the Giants beat the Eagles?
No, I don't. I really don't. And I'll tell you why. Because the Giants have 3 key cogs back this week that they didn't have in week 1, the first time they played them. Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, and Leonard Williams. They have those 3 guys who are the core of their defense back fully healthy. Like, you saw how different Adoree Jackson made the Giants defense against Minnesota because Justin Jefferson was kept in check. You've seen Leonard Williams has been healthier and stronger. So this is the Giants team at full strength. So, and who knows what Jalen Hurts is going to show up this time around. He's fully healthy, but who knows? It's been how long since he's been 100%. I think starting in week 18 was a huge gamble, and thank God for the Eagles, he got away unscathed, but you were one bad hit away from having Gardner Minshew as the number 1 seed game, and that would have been a rough one. So I can see it. I can see the Giants beating the Eagles. I can't see the Cowboys beating the 49ers, and that's why I think that'd be the bigger upset.
Okay.
And to your fighting off camera, not recording it, I got to get the laptop over to Connecticut and go across the tolls and then stop at the rest stop and get more battery packs. There's a whole to-do going on here.
You don't have to record the whole drive. How difficult is it to move with a laptop? You're going anyways.
Well, I'm going to record the drive anyway because we're doing live, so I'm doing the show now. So obviously,
you've done several shows on your phone. Why can't you do that?
Well, because it's better camera angles on the computer, and you need a second. You need the phone camera for the up close shot, and then the computer angle for the wide lens.
Rule 37: no excuses. Play like a champion.
Yeah, Rule 75, whatever the hell that means.
All right, Rule 54. We move on.
54.
I don't know. First number that popped in my brain.
Yikes! That's
So that was that question. Would you rather? Do we have another would you rather, Justin, or are we moving on?
Yes. All right. You have 1,000 fictitious dollars. Okay. You have to place a bet. You get to choose one NFC seed, one number 1 seed, AFC or NFC. Who you betting on to make the Super Bowl?
So this is either Kansas City or Philadelphia,
or yeah.
Well, I think the cheap answer, the superb owl jerk, really? Yes, okay, fine. The cheap answer is whatever bet is going to get me my money back and then some.
Yeah, no, that's the object of every bet, Rick. What is your choice of team that you think?
Well, right, but so let's say the fact of the matter is that Kansas City goes off at 6-5. I like Kansas City better than Philadelphia, but if I bet $1,000 on that, I'm not going to get $1,000 back. Or if it's like 1 to 5 odds, let's say, I'm not going to get $1,000 back. You got to think about that from a gambling mindset here. I firmly believe Kansas City would be the team that gets to the Super Bowl instead of Philadelphia. And if all things were equal at 10 to 1 odds for either team, yeah, I'm putting my money on Kansas City. No question about it. But what do the odds say? And that's my cerebral mindset here. On a football standpoint, look, Jarek said it, and he's absolutely correct. You have to go through Kansas City in order to win the AFC. One way or another, you have to go through them. Philadelphia is the team that was a surprise, and we don't really know that much about them. Like I said, like weeks ago, we said this. We don't know who the Eagles are until today, until this playoff game. Because, there have been 15-1 teams that have been regular season juggernauts that got into the playoffs and, to use the technical term, went kaput, So you don't know who this Eagles team is. And the fact that they struggled to get the number 1 seed speaks volumes about how they could struggle against the Dallas, against San Francisco. They'll struggle tonight against the Giants. Kansas City, I don't really see them having much of a struggle. I mean, they'll be playing great games, but I don't think they'll ever look for a moment like they're not going to be in it. It's going to take what happened last year. It's going to take a Pat Mahomes meltdown. And there's only so many of those that the guy's going to have in his NFL career. So if all things are being equal, I'm betting Kansas City. But if my money's telling me that you can make more by betting Philadelphia, that might be the way that I go. But the real conventional wisdom is Kansas City.
Which team would I have more confidence in being down by at least 2 scores to still come back and win me a game? I'm going with Money Boy Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, it's simple as that. Like, we've seen the Chiefs en route to a Super Bowl come back down 24-0 in a playoff game. And the quarterback on the other side was a pretty good quarterback. He who shall not be named now, considering, well, he's in Cleveland. But I'm sticking with the Chiefs. Like Rick said, the Eagles are the surprise between the 2 top seeds. And it kind of feels like the last couple of years, like there's always one of the top seeds has been a surprise, at least going back to last season where the Tennessee Titans were the top seed, which still to this day, it boggles my mind. And they got cursed this season by missing the playoffs. So yay. But in that essence, we knew that even with saying this was going to be a down year for the Chiefs, we knew they were still going to make the playoffs. We still had them definitively as a playoff team. Granted, we also had other teams in the AFC West as playoff teams, but, we still had them comfortably as a playoff team. We still believe that they were going to do damage in the playoffs. I think even in a down year, none of us would have had them losing. If they had started in the wild card, none of us would have had them losing in that wild card game. Mahomes probably would have dropped 4 touchdowns if he had to play the wild card game. The Philadelphia Eagles are the surprise team where 2/3 of this podcast did not pick them to win the division going into the year, and plenty of other people were very suspect on them. And they have proved a lot of people wrong. I've given them their flowers before. But simple as this. To me, the Kansas City Chiefs, between those 2 squads, if they have their foot on your throat, they can close the deal. Now, is there a chance that they could blow it? Yes, a la last year's AFC Championship game. But more times than not, Patrick Mahomes has proven that he will put a game away if he gets the opportunity to with this team. If that was the Chiefs last week with the 27-0 lead against the Jaguars, that game would have gone to 45-0, 55-0. Like, the Chiefs would not have lost that game, and they would have made sure that the Jags would have never even sniffed the chance at a potential comeback. Like, that's what I talk about DNA for. There is a different kind of DNA that the Kansas City Chiefs have that, honestly, looking around the whole rest of the playoffs, like Rick said it, I think San Fran is the only definitive team that could match them in that DNA. Definitively. Maybe the Bengals or Bills would be like the next team after that. But like the Chiefs, the mindset of them, this is the thing that I don't think we ever pay attention enough in the sports. I think the mindset of the Kansas City Chiefs is what sets them apart from everybody. They know how good they are. They know what they can do. And at the snap of a finger, they can demolish you in a specific game, in a quarter even, if they so choose. And they still have that explosiveness. They still have that potential. Missing Tyreek Hill did nothing because Patrick Mahomes, like I just said, is probably going to win the MVP award at the end of the season. Like, this is still the best team in the NFL until proven otherwise. And I don't think there's any reason to go against them. I understand the whole betting odds thing, like getting your money back and return, et cetera, et cetera. That's not my forte. I should be 100% upfront about that. But if you're asking me to just pick one of these teams to definitively go and make the superb owl, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs over the Philadelphia Eagles on every single occasion. Because it's Patrick Mahomes versus Jalen Hurts. It's Travis Kelce and insert name of whatever second receiving option versus A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Admittedly pretty close, but Travis Kelce is a dog,
well,
especially in the playoffs.
Here's the thing with that. I'm not asking you which team is better. I'm asking which team is more likely to make the Super Bowl. They're not playing each other.
I'm going to go with a better
You got to look at
team.
the opponents. The Eagles have to play the Giants, and then whoever wins Cowboys, Niners. The Chiefs have to play the Jaguars, which admittedly they will probably win this week, and then they have to play the Bills or the Bengals.
Yeah,
it's not a question of what's a better team, the Chiefs or the Eagles. Which one is likely to win both of those games?
Well, the key for me is that Arrowhead has shown to be a fortress for this kingdom, and anytime you got to go play a playoff game in there, it's not a fun experience for a team that's on the other side.
Well, sadly, they're not going to have that if it's the Bills.
True. Very true. But that's the thing. Will it be the Bills? Because that Bills-Bengals game is a toss-up.
True.
You know, so that might help them out. And I do believe, too, that even if the game is in Atlanta, if it is Chiefs-Bills, I still think Pat Mahomes is still going to have, the game of his life. And
it's going to be a good game.
It's going to be a great game.
Those two teams always show up to that game.
My thing is that there's more, but the thing is that the Chiefs have beaten all these teams before. Pat Mahomes, in some capacity, has beaten all these teams before. He's gotten to, what has it been, 2 Super Bowls?
Yeah, but
the Eagles are still a wild card. The Eagles are not that they're a wild card, but they're still a difficult team to predict. And again, all it takes is one little slip up, and the Giants will make them pay. And if it goes to the conference championship game and it's San Francisco, that defense is pretty nasty. And that offense that they have too, it's Brock Purdy, but you're going to tell me that Deebo Samuel's not going to run all crazy? Like, how many times do we see in that?
Or Christian McCaffrey.
Right. How many times do we see that a 5-yard play turned into a 25-yard play because of Samuel and McCaffrey's abilities? Not just last week, but all season long.
Don't forget Kittle and Ayuk.
Exactly. Kittle and Ayuk.
Let me just say this. Again, I understand what you guys are saying. And the Chiefs, I would say, if I had to pick a game between the two of them, the Chiefs have not beaten the Bengals in 4 games over the last calendar year. The Cincinnati Bengals won all 4. The Chiefs and the Bills in the last calendar year, the Bills have a win, an outright win, and the Chiefs have a win via coin toss.
Still got the win.
I'm not saying not. A win is a win, but let's be honest here. That win was a coin toss. Josh Allen never got to touch the ball, and the entire world knew it was a travesty. The Chiefs knew it was a travesty. That game didn't continue.
Hey, they still beat them in the most important. I'm just saying.
Listen. You still gave Mahomes time. Yeah. You still gave Mahomes time.
I was going to say, before that coin toss, he had 13
I'm not discrediting the win. All I'm saying is, you want to talk about, teams, and the Eagles and the Niners have not played this year. I get it, but you want to give Mahomes all the credit in the world. He's got to go through 2 teams he has not done well against the last full calendar year.
He's 2-0 against the Bills in the playoffs. I'm more than confident he could beat them again.
Listen, I'm not saying they couldn't win any game at any day, but if you want to look at if you want to make the excuse and you want to say their past record over the last calendar year is what, 1-4 against these 2 teams.
Look, since Cincinnati's beaten them in the last 4 games, streaks die.
Streaks die.
Just ask Mark Callaway. Streaks die.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. Records need to be broken. Absolutely.
I'm
just playing devil's advocate there, but yeah,
I know you are. I know what you're doing.
What?
I know what you're doing.
All right.
You're trying to rile me up so I can be truculent all night, all so long.
You don't need to be truculent.
I know.
Moving on from that, so that ends an outstanding round of NFL Would You Rather. Thank you for that, Justin. Do we got any fact or fiction before we move on to the games?
Yep.
Let's do it.
All right. Brock Purdy is a top 5 quarterback in the NFC.
Big clock, Brock.
Top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Are we talking currently, or are we talking
right now?
I'm convinced
he couldn't be anything more than currently. He's played 7-8 games.
Well, again, I'm talking about, or are we talking about the scope of all the quarterbacks in the NFC, even the ones that aren't in the playoffs? I'm talking about everybody.
NFC, they're an NFC team. They count.
Well,
Justin just wants to give us more like questions where we have to go like team by team in the conference and like knock them out one by one.
He wants to make us look like idiots. I got it. It's fine.
No, I want to know your opinion. Listen, there have been very few people to come in and have this sort of success that Brock Purdy has had, especially being a third-string quarterback, and it has never happened for a Mr. Irrelevant. There's never been a Mr. Irrelevant that's thrown a forward pass in the NFL. Now, the last pick in the draft has come in, and he has led the most electric offense we have seen in quite some time from San Francisco. We've all known they've had superstars there on offense, and it might not necessarily be all Brock Purdy, but that kid's playing excellent. He is doing things there that they're all of a sudden a Super Bowl favorite because their offense is performing, not just their defense. And now we got to seriously consider, is this kid a top quarterback in that conference?
Shall we go through the countdown, Rick?
How do I I don't think I need to, but how do I put this delicately in a way that won't get me in trouble is what I'm trying to think about here.
I vote for getting in trouble.
Brock Purdy's the number one quarterback in the NFC right now. Yeah, he is. With Daniel Jones number 2.
Oh Lord.
Now, look.
I feel like one of those points was discredited by the other, but go on.
Fine, sure. Well, again, I mean, look at the four quarterbacks that are remaining in the NFC. Dak Prescott has been hit or miss, and Jalen Hurts has been injured. I don't want to say Hurts has been hurt because that's just
Jalen Hurts and Jalen Hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my humor.
The two consistent ones have been Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy. But Brock Purdy's just been a different beast, man. And again, a lot of that has to do with the system. But you could say the same thing for Daniel Jones, too. That Daniel Jones has been allowed to run more freely and be a lot more wide open in a Brian Dable system than a Joe Judge or a Pat Shermer or a Ben McAdoo system even. But there's just something about Brock Purdy that's just special. Like, they're really, really special about this kid. And you know what? The kid was a really good quarterback in college. So it's not like this is coming from nowhere. It's not like this is like Ryan Lindley, just coming off the bench and winning a game for Arizona. This is a kid who probably on any other team probably would be their number 2 quarterback. He was just saddled to be number 3 behind Jimmy G and Trey Lance, who they thought was their future. But now, if you're San Francisco, the performance this year has really significantly changed the way that San Francisco's got to look at their quarterback room. I think Brock Purdy could be, if he does continue, could be their number 1 QB going forward, which I hate to do this comparison, but it's like Tom Brady all over again. Wasn't given a chance until something happened, and then all of a sudden the kid just has a storybook run, and then Brock Purdy's going to be one marrying Brazilian supermodels and divorcing them. It's going to be like that. But I look at the rest of the conference, I'm not impressed with any of these quarterbacks. The ones that didn't make the playoffs, not impressive to me because either they were hurt or they had bad seasons. And Carson Wentz is the joke. And then the ones that did make the playoffs but lost, Kirk Cousins showed you that he is just not ready for prime time. Geno Smith had a great year.
For that 4th down pass.
He's Captain Checkdown. Don't you see it over there? Captain Checkdown. Geno Smith showed you that this was a great season for him, and he'll probably get a big contract, but, I don't think he is in the top echelon. And Tom Brady is just old. Father Time's finally winning.
He's also not going to be in the NFC anymore after this season.
No, of course not. And so, yeah, I mean, look, I think you gotta give it to Brock Purdy here. You gotta give Brock Purdy that distinction. So yeah, I'd say not only is he top 5 in the NFC, he's the number 1 quarterback in the NFC. Now, is that top 5 in the NFL right now? Yes, because he's probably number 5 in the NFL right now. I'd probably have Trevor Lawrence over him.
All the AFC quarterbacks.
Yes, all the AFC quarterbacks over him, and then he's number 5. But in terms of the NFC, absolutely. I think he's the number 1 quarterback in the NFC right now.
You're putting Justin Herbert outside your top 5?
I'm saying currently as in the ones that are remaining in the playoffs. I'm using that distinction.
Oh, he's top 5 in the playoffs right now?
Of the quarterbacks that are remaining? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jalen Hurts hasn't played yet, and Patrick Mahomes deserves to be up there considering his resume.
Yeah.
It's Patrick Mahomes, then it's like 3 steps down to Allen and Burrow, then it's 2 more steps down to Lawrence, then 2 more steps down to Purdy.
So I thought he was saying he's top 5 in the NFL right now. That's what I thought you said. And then you said you put Trevor Lawrence above him. And then I was like,
Justin Herbert needs a good coach to win him games, and he doesn't have that right now.
The mind of the Podfather, Justin.
Yes. So
boring.
That's where I am.
Look, I have made the joke several times in the group chat. For us, it's like, who knew that San Francisco drafted their franchise quarterback? It's just not the guy they picked at number 3, but the guy they picked with the last pick in the draft. Huh? Who would have thought? So that makes 2 top 3 quarterbacks that should get traded this offseason. Zach Wilson and Trey Lance in that same boat together. They can do as they please on that boat. But yeah, it's a top 5 quarterback in the NFC right now. Like See, I love the gimmick because I've called him Big Clock because, I'm not going to say the actual nickname that NFL Twitter has given him because, we're a kid-friendly show. But at the same time here, like, I do need to see a little bit more of the kid. I can't just give it to him based off of this run. But in that same essence, this is where I want to take the trip around the NFC here. So let's start with the NFC South. Brady's going to be gone after this season, so that doesn't matter. Atlanta, no. Carolina, no. New Orleans, no. Boom, that's the NFC South call. Let's go to the NFC East. Daniel Jones, I'm taking Brock Purdy over him. Jalen Hurts, he had a really good season this year. He made the playoffs last year, so let's just put him to the side for now as the top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Insert any Washington quarterback, no. And Dak Prescott, no. Not like maybe 6 or 7 for me, but no. So we only have Jalen Hurts right now. NFC North, Rick may not like him. I'm still putting Aaron Rodgers as a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Justin Fields, not there yet. Am I forgetting? Jared Goff, no. And
Jared Goff had a great season.
Kirk Cousins. Old Captain Checkdown Charlie. I don't know about all that. Sayonara. So let's go to the NFC West. Geno Smith, the future Seahawks Ring of Honor Hall of Famer. You could argue he played like a top 5 quarterback in the conference this season. So
but
maybe
Brock Purdy beat him.
But Brock Purdy beat him in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that defense. So there's him. The Rams, Stafford had a bad year, and his career might be over still. We need to wait on the official word of that. And it might be Baker Mayfield as a Ram next season, which, oh dear God. And who am I forgetting? That the Cardinals, Kyler, but he's injured right now.
Mm-hmm.
So all avenues, all roads lead to right now, at this very moment, Brock Purdy is a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. Absolutely. That's a fact. And he might very well be the future of this franchise because Jimmy G is going to walk. We knew this was going to be the swan song no matter what. And there's nothing to me that should make it so that Trey Lance should start over Brock to start next season. And normally I would go with the mindset of they gave up so much to trade for Trey Lance, so you'd have to. But I think if Brock Purdy is able to be the starting quarterback of this team making it to the Super Bowl again, I cannot see a situation where you can legitimately argue that Trey Lance should be starting over him day 1 next season. So, yeah, Brock Purdy right now, I believe I'm saying it, is a top 5 quarterback in the NFC.
Like this is a guy who in college completed 68% of his passes for over 12,000 yards and 81 total touchdowns for an Iowa State team that is not a joke. And he was a 3-time All Big 12 honoree. It's not like this guy was, so hyped and then played 1 game in college because of the pandemic and then became the number 3 overall pick. This is a legitimate quarterback, and he's showing he's a legitimate guy. He knows how to take care of the ball. He knows how to use weapons that are around him. And also, he knows how to call his own number when he needs to. I don't know. Like I said, to me, top 5, absolutely. I love the way he's playing. And, like all the quarterbacks that you named, you can't argue anybody else. Like, Sam, who else would you argue?
I just named all them.
I know. But you know me. Might have been cracked out for a little bit. So
fair enough.
Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be in the AFC. Let's be honest.
It's the Xfinity on my side as well. Right?
Yeah, So,
Justin, just for context, do we have another fact or fiction question after this, or was this the only one?
This is the only one.
Okay, so honestly, let's transition over then to talking about what happened this past weekend during the wild card matchups, because we could continue this conversation here, the wild card wrap up of the NFC this past weekend. No, we're going to do a little bit of flip-flopping because there are 2 specific games we want to say for last year. But Geno Smith and the Seahawks, 17-6 lead at halftime. extremely close game, and then the 49ers just go wild. And the thing is, Brock Purdy is finishing these drives. Like, the thing, this is not, it's funny because I am going to bring up this quarterback in a comparison for another team here. They are not protecting Brock Purdy from himself like the Jaguars did with Blake Bortles when they made the AFC Championship game years ago. Brock Purdy is legitimately out here making plays. Like, he had over 300 passing yards in his first career playoff game. He had 3 touchdowns. Like, protecting a quarterback, you're not going to protect your quarterback and he's going to put up those stats. He's actually putting up numbers. He's actually finishing drives. And he's, like Rick said, I think, to me, there is a difference, and I think you guys would agree with this. There is a difference between a quarterback not throwing a lot of interceptions because the scheming is protecting him and not throwing a lot of interceptions because I think he's just making the right plays more often than not. It could be a little bit of both, but I don't think the scheme is what's protecting Brock Purdy from throwing all these, throwing so many interceptions. Like, I think he's actually just genuinely being a smart quarterback.
You know, but you have to credit the scheme. I mean, that's the whole point of these schemes. I mean, you want to scheme guys open, one, and you want to scheme guys in a way that it's going to protect your quarterback. I mean, there are guys that you have to protect more than others. But, I mean, in theory, you have to think that all schemes are there to protect their quarterbacks from throwing interceptions. And then some quarterbacks don't have the processing power to recognize defenses and make poor decisions.
Good sir, have you ever seen Bruce Arians schemes? That does not protect anybody from interception.
Justin, I'm disappointed in you. We had Adam Gase for 2 years.
I said that's what it's supposed to do.
Fair enough.
Well,
there's a reason that there are good coaches and bad coaches, because good coaches believe their scheme is infallible and the person has to adapt to it. And then there's good coaches that say, this is the player I have with the skill set that he has, and let me see what I can do with that skill set and create a scheme that best works for that player.
Which is why
Adam Gase.
Yeah. Which is why some of the coaches that lost this past weekend should probably be fired. No, I'm not saying the scheme has nothing to do with it, Justin. I know the scheme is
but all
very much
I'm saying is I don't think that it should hurt or hinder your decision in who is playing well.
But I'm not saying it's hurting it. What I'm saying is that Brock Purdy is taking the scheme and he is executing it. But I think part of that is also like his just own natural innate ability. I think he's just making the right plays at the right time.
His football IQ is out through the roof. This kid has processing power that you don't see in a lot of quarterbacks. And it does help that he's got arguably the smartest QB coach we've seen in a long time as his head coach.
That's what happens when you go to class.
Those Iowa State boys go to class.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to do in the state of Iowa. As we just made a new enemy there.
They know. And I'll talk about Iowa a little bit later on as well. But here's what I'll say too. Look, but here's what I'll say too. Like, the same arguments you can make for Brock Purdy being smart and knowing his system, you can kind of make the same arguments for Geno Smith, which is why I thought this was a very interesting matchup between the two teams. I thought, divisional lineup, sure, but to see how far Geno Smith has come under the Pete Carroll system and to be given a shot like he did, the guy threw for over 4,200 yards in this system. He was smart with the ball. He knew where to throw to. He knew that he had DK Metcalf, and he trusted his receivers. He had Lockett. He had Kenneth Walker in the back, and he trusted his guys. And so, look, again, this was a Seattle team that some people on this podcast had 1-16 this year, and they were the 7th seed and made the playoffs and competed for a half against San Francisco. So you got to give Seattle some credit too, because look, they didn't make it easy. San Francisco just had more weapons at the end of the day, but Seattle didn't make it easy on them. So that's great too. And to the point of Brock Purdy, it's about the system. I agree with you, but it's also about the talent and it's about the ability. Like, why didn't Trey Lance work in this system? He was injured a lot more, but even that first game they had, keep in mind, that first game, they lost to the Bears. The team that has now won, 11 games in a row, lost their first game this season to the team that has the number 1 overall pick in this next year's draft.
Not the Houston Texans.
No. But so think about day and night, and even the Jimmy Garoppolo games that there have been, think about day and night, the differences we're seeing and the changes we're seeing between Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. I mean, it's incredible. It really is. And it gives you pause, but then it gives you excitement in the Bay Area because, you've got a good quarterback there and you've got a good team that's there, and it turns out that Christian McCaffrey was the one piece they were missing because he has just elevated that offense to a totally different scheme. He really has.
A certain podcast called that, by the way.
We did.
Let me just say this. Christian McCaffrey's definitely added a new element, and they've definitely played a lot better since they've had Christian McCaffrey. The piece they were missing seemingly was the quarterback because they got Christian McCaffrey, and they weren't putting 38 points a game up. They are the best scoring offense in the NFL since he's come in.
Yeah.
They have the best completion percentage, I believe, the best efficiency percentage. They convert the most first downs. They're firing on all cylinders in a way where we have not seen in a long time. And if this team can be the way that we think they are, which is the number one defense in the NFL, and now all of a sudden the top scoring offense in the NFL, they're going to be good for a long time.
Yes.
Especially when you consider from an organizational perspective, you have 3 more seasons of Brock Purdy on a 7th round pick contract after this. You want to talk about bringing in rookie quarterbacks on the rookie wage scale. This kid's going to be making nothing over the next 3 seasons. You could literally bring in any and everybody you want. You want to talk about roster flexibility. You have the utmost roster flexibility if you run with Brock Purdy as your starter. You have 3 more years of this kid. What is he going to make per year? Like $1 million at best over the next couple of seasons? And even when he gets his first contract extension, realistically, he's not going to be paid like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Unless he puts up like 45 touchdowns in the season, then maybe we have a different conversation in a couple of years. Right. But assuming he's, in that sometimes teetering top 10 in the NFL, but more so like top 12, like he'll get paid well, but you're still like, there is a lot of flexibility that the 49ers will have here with Brock Purdy that Jimmy G doesn't give him anymore because we know he wants to be a starter again. We know he wants at least one more payday before his career is done. And Trey Lance, like, it's 2 more years left on being the 3rd overall pick plus a 5th-year option where that's going to be a big decision. Now, granted, the 5th-year option is less when you have played less time, you have less accolades, et cetera, but it's still going to be a hefty contract at least. It's still going to probably be, even with as little as he's played, $8 or $9 million. So do you go with the $9 million, the guy who's going to be a couple mil each of the next 2 seasons plus $9 million in 3 years, or do you go with the guy who's going to be $1 million or less over the next 3 seasons? I'm just waiting for the day in the future when Brock Purdy's won 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers and he's going to open 262 productions to honor the fact he was the 262nd pick in the NFL draft as a one-up to Tom Brady's whole spiel. But, in all seriousness, like, this is a wonderful story for Brock Purdy. And, like, this, as much as we like joking about stuff on this podcast about being chaos because we are the sports agents of chaos, like, this is just a genuinely feel-good story to see a kid, the last pick in the draft. Justin said himself, last picks never, ever suit up for a regular season game. Sometimes they don't even make it to play in the preseason, let alone get to be the starter in the playoffs to do this. And also, shout out, we're going to get to this guy in a moment, but Skylar Thompson was also a 7-round quarterback that got to start his playoff game. Now, due to injury. It was a close game as well. Like, there's some talent there. There's some talent there in these guys. More so Brock Purdy than Skylar, but, there's some talent to be credited. So that wraps up the 49ers portion of it. Like I said, there's 2 games that we are saving here specifically. So I'm going to go with the other NFC game. Then we're going to jump back to the AFC. Then we're going to jump to our 2 favorite games that we want to talk about here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers got shellacked by the Dallas Cowboys, to say the very least, during Wild Card Weekend. It did not look pretty. And after a red zone interception thrown by Brady early in the game, which was the first red zone interception he threw since he joined the Buccaneers, apparently. Fun fact for that. It was just a demolishment. The Dallas Cowboys ended up winning the game 31-0. At one point, they were up 24-0. Good thing they didn't hit an extra field goal before Tampa scored because they would have been in trouble if they were up 27-0. But in all seriousness, the Dallas Cowboys, despite 4 missed point after attempts, defeat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers very handily. Tom Brady is no longer undefeated against the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys, it was their first road playoff wins since, what year was it, Rick?
93. It was 30 years.
There we go. So big win there for the Dallas Cowboys, punching their ticket to move on. I'll start with Justin here because he's mainly been asking us the questions. Justin, what was your, just as you saw this game play out, what did you think of everything on both ends from Dallas's, just pure all-around team effort to Tampa? Doesn't look like they could buy a lick of offense in this one.
I mean, it's kind of what we thought was going to be. There was people sitting there like, oh, well, they still have Tom Brady. They still have the ability for Mike Evans to go off for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns like we saw him do for them to clinch the division. They still have Chris Godwin, playoff Lenny, but that team clearly had deficiencies to start the season. It's almost impossible to make it through an NFL season unscathed, and they were no exception. They did lose their top pass rusher in Shaquille Barrett, and the offensive line was a mess. Tom Brady didn't have time. I don't necessarily agree with the firing of Byron Leftwich. I think that he was kind of more of a scapegoat, but the coaching was not wonderful. It was lackluster, and they just couldn't get anything going. The second they even got something going, Brady uncharacteristically threw a red zone interception. So, they didn't really deserve to be there. I don't think they were the beneficiary of a really weak division, and the Cowboys played well. Barring Maher's 4 missed extra points, but yeah, the team that we thought should dominated that game. I'm not surprised. I will be interested to see now if this Cowboys team can put anything together against this 49ers team, because I do think that we might be in for a surprisingly really, really good football game Sunday night, tomorrow night. So I'm rooting for them to make it a game, because the last few, the last 10 times we've seen San Francisco, it hasn't really been a game. I'd like to see a good close game. Let's see San Francisco earn that NFC Championship game.
Absolutely. Rick, any last comments to make about the Cowboys-Buccaneers game that we haven't talked about yet? I don't really have too much to say about it. Like, I'll admit I did go against Dallas in this one because I thought that Washington game just really rubbed me the wrong way for them to end the season off. But I guess like Tampa was even worse than we all really like. We knew they were bad. They were even worse than we all thought.
Well, I mean, and you can attribute a lot of this to the fact that they were down early, which is all well and good. But look at the play call selection for both sides. Dallas ran the ball 35 times in that game and passed it 33 times. Tampa Bay only had 12 carries, 12 rushing plays, and 66 passing attempts.
Well, let me just say that rushing stat for Dallas could be a little skewed considering they led most of the game.
True.
And in the second quarter, it went up to double digits, and it never really got close.
Right. But I will say this too.
A lot more than they would have if they were close.
And I will say this too. Like, this is why I've been beating the drum about Tony Pollard for the past couple of weeks. Because Zeke only had 27 yards on 13 carries. Tony Pollard had 77 on 15. He's the lightning change back. It's basically thunder and lightning all over again, because that's what Zeke is. Zeke is the feature back, but Tony Pollard's that change of pace guy that had those back-breaking first down carries. And so that allowed Dallas to lengthen their drives, open up the field more. Dak accounted for 5 touchdowns in this game, 4 passing, 1 rushing. You can't ask for anything better for Dallas. They got the monkey off their back, but now they got to go face San Francisco. And this is the thing. You have to hope that you don't have a Jekyll and Hyde moment here. Because like Justin said, Dallas needs to have a good game here. If they don't win, you got to keep it close. If it's a burnout game where they're down 27-0, or whatever, 35-3, then what are we doing?
Someone's getting fired after that.
Yeah, someone's getting fired, and it's probably going to be Kellen Moore, who's going to go coach somewhere else. It's just like
there's a good chance that they have 2 new coordinators in Dallas next year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
They just finished an interview virtually today with Arizona.
Dan Quinn will definitely get a head coaching job at the end of the season.
He's interviewing everywhere, and Kellen Moore has been a name on people's lists for a long time now.
Yep.
He's done very good things with that offense.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see if they don't succeed this year and they don't do what they think that they are capable of doing, how that team is going to look next year.
Yeah. And that's also even the quarterback, because look, I know that Dak Prescott has these games. I know he does. But there's a lot of talk as well about the games that he doesn't have, where he's looked really bad. And there's a lot of questions from Cowboys Nation about, is this guy really our quarterback of the future? Because again, think about it like that. It had been 30 years since the Cowboys won a road playoff game. What's it been, 29 since they even went to a Super Bowl? America's team hasn't been to a Super Bowl in 3 decades. Let that sink in. Dak Prescott might not be the answer. So they might surprise people and try and draft a quarterback late first round. If they don't think Dak's the answer, if they don't think Dak is the answer, there's a possibility of that happening. I don't like it either, but there's a possibility. You don't know what Jerry Jones is going to do.
You know Cooper Rush is on the roster, right?
Okay, but Pride of Central Michigan. Yeah, okay, great. So
I don't see that as a possibility. When you have a quarterback like Dak and a backup like Cooper Rush, there's a chance they may draft a quarterback. I don't see it being in the first round, though.
I can see them getting a practice squad guy, but I don't know about the whole thing.
Unless you're getting someone that you know is going to replace the guy that you have there, you're not making that kind of wave. So you have to say, all right, I still have this quarterback, I'm paying him a ton of money. He's still in his window of opportunity. Let's capitalize and make our team better. We were a good team last year. That's like drafting Jordan Love in the first round, the year after your quarterback wins an MVP. It doesn't make any sense.
Who would do that? Who would do that, Justin?
Well, no, but okay, but to that end, Aaron Rodgers is also a jerk, so that's different.
I mean, he still won the MVP the next season.
Of course he did, but
look, I'm not saying not. Look, I'm just saying if you're a well-managed team, which we can argue back and forth, but I think the Cowboys are a well-managed team. They are a relevant team almost every year, and barring injuries, they are expected to compete. Now, compete to you might not be the same to me. I'm a Jets fan. I know you are too, Rick. Compete means they will make the playoffs. They will win. They will be a threat to win at least one game. They are an early Super Bowl favorite.
Yeah.
They are good every year. And to draft a quarterback with Dak Prescott in the second year of a big money contract in which he is still performing at a high level overall is not going to do anything. You need to address your other issues, and you need to focus on the pieces that you're missing to try and get over that hump.
I hear what you're saying. So they're going to go kicker in the first round then?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they're going to allow Brett Maher to use that little thing now that they're saying all the kickers have been using to cheat.
Oh, good. Spider attack in football. Great. Awesome.
Yeah. That would be funny to
see that report this week?
I did, yeah.
Crazy.
It's crazy. Wild.
Yes. So there is that. The playoffs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers comes to an end. For the Cowboys, it continues. Tom Brady will not be a Buccaneer after the season. We know that. Where will he go? Well, we also have guesses on this podcast, but that's for a future episode, ladies and gentlemen. We stick to the playoffs. We stick to the formula here. So let's move on from that in that instance of things. Let's go quickly to the AFC, and we're going to kind of combine these games together because both these games kind of followed a similar formula where higher seed, home playoff game, advantage coming in, heavily favored coming in. We know that they were going to win. We thought it would be a bigger discrepancy in terms of the final score. The Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals do defeat the Miami Dolphins and Baltimore Ravens respectively, but it was a lot closer than people would have thought it would have been going into that matchup. Certainly what we, majority of us thought on this podcast in and of itself. It was a 34-31 final for the Bills beating the Miami Dolphins. And it was a 24-17 final for the Cincinnati Bengals defeating the Baltimore Ravens. Rick, I'm going to throw it over to you. Which close margin surprised you the most between those two games? And what did you see from those games that's going to play a big factor into this upcoming game between the Bengals and the Bills?
The Bengals and the Bills are going to be better at clock management than the Dolphins and the Ravens were, because there were some really horrible miscues, which I can expect from the hipster wonk Mike McDaniel with the terrible aviators. But John Harbaugh's been in this league for like 15, 20 years, and the clock management at the end of that Ravens game was awful.
So bad it cut out his internet.
It's a great face to pause on.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I think that face kind of describes the season for the Miami Marlins and Ravens, considering how things ended.
Yeah. This is the face he made when the Jacksonville Jaguars came back and won the game last week.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll take over, I guess.
Yeah.
The clock management was rough.
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
Well, my timeout management is also really bad too. Anytime I say timeout, it times out on me.
Yeah.
Say TO, Rick.
Yeah. Well, it was the clock management was horrible on both sides. It was just Mike wasted his stoppages in play. How's that instead? At a terrible time. And then John Harbaugh on that last drive or whatever, like, take yours. Like, he let the clock run down. It was horrible. I was more impressed with Miami, though. Like, Skylar Thompson really showed me something, and this Miami defense came to play. Baltimore kind of limped into it. Like, you knew Baltimore didn't have a chance no matter how close the game was because they had no Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm sorry, but Tyler Huntley is not a competitive person that I think. He got them close.
No.
He did, but it was one fortuitous bounce of the ball that let Sam Hubbard run free for 98 yards. Like he was the happiest little boy running to the chocolate factory, and Willy Wonka was there waiting with open arms. So
they still had a chance to win that game, barring a rough holding penalty, which it was a hold. Maybe shouldn't have run the ball, and if they were going to run the ball, they should have been more prepared to use their timeouts. No question. How about that? They were in that game. If there was a team that was in the game, it was the Baltimore Ravens. As good as Miami looked and as close as they kept it, it never really felt like they were actually going to. It was like, are they going to do this? No, they're not.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, the thing is, too, that I look at, like, the way it was from the week prior to this week. So the week prior, Cincinnati and Baltimore already played. So you knew what was going to happen. But Miami was going into this game, after seeing what Buffalo did to New England the week prior, seeing that Nyheim Hines had two kick returns for touchdowns. And they held the special teams game in check. That was a big thing. They held that in check. I understand
a game on special teams like that. Like,
I understand it's fluky,
but like,
I understand it's fluky, but like, at least in that way. And again, there were miscues that Buffalo made that Miami capitalized on. Josh Allen, like I said, he could get a little wild and crazy with the football sometimes, and I think Miami exploited that better. It just took one extra play. Buffalo's offense was really good, but the thing that I noticed too is that this is why we always talk about divisional games in the playoffs, because you see these teams twice, and it was more competitive the third time around. Like, I didn't think either team had a chance. I was more impressed with Miami because Baltimore was that pain in the ass that everybody knew they were going to be. But Miami, I was more impressed with because third-string quarterback, rookie quarterback, trying his hardest against one of the worst defenses to play against if you're a brand new guy. I still think Matt Milano owns Mike White's ribs. And so, it was just, I was more impressed with them, but I didn't think either team was going to win, and they didn't. So,
Also, all things considered, and I love the fact that you bring it up for both sides, to be fair, Rick, but I think with the Ravens in particular, facing the Bengals in back-to-back weeks, preparing for this team, like, it's a whole different game compared to what Miami's situation was. And like, you look at the Ravens defense, it's Roquan Smith, who they just gave a nice contract extension to. It's that defensive back crew of Hamilton and Peters and Humphrey and Marcus Williams. Like, this is a Baltimore Ravens team that, even with the flaws of Tyler Huntley leading the offense, that Ravens defense can still. Honestly, I thought on paper the Ravens defense was the best defense in the AFC. Like just from a pure talent perspective, there aren't a lot of defenses that can match up with the Ravens, like, guy for guy. Like, maybe pass rush, you'd probably give the advantage to the other teams. But you want to talk about the second level, and especially the defensive back crew, nobody could compete with the Baltimore Ravens with that defense.
Very young, too.
Like, yes.
I mean, Peters is getting a little older, and Humphreys, they have to replace their cornerbacks. Safety-wise, they just signed Marcus Williams, and they drafted, what's his name at Notre Dame? Yeah, Kyle Hamilton. They have Patrick Queen in that linebacking core.
He's a beast.
They also have Jalen Armour Davis, who I know was on IR for a bit, but he's a fourth-round guy they drafted this year who could be a decent corner. But
another guy who we mentioned in our 3-round block, by the way.
Exactly.
We hit on so many guys that are just going to be relevant.
We really did. But again, like, all of that notion aside, there was something about this Baltimore team from week one that really just did not impress me about it. And like, even that game, like, it sucks when for a fact that your team revolves around one guy and he's not there. Like, you could kind of feel that this team revolved around Lamar Jackson. And when he wasn't in the lineup and when he wasn't healthy, it was a problem. Like, the offense makes everything go.
You have to argue that's on management, because they've really failed, because it's not like they were going all that hard when Lamar was there. There were offensive struggles when Lamar was there.
But at the very least, too, Lamar could call his own number and change the game. Tyler Huntley or Anthony Brown weren't that answer.
Well, but your offense relied too heavily on that is my argument.
Right.
If they would have made those adjustments, they could have gotten playmakers in the secondary and in the flat and receivers that could do it and running backs that can catch the ball. And like their offense was so heavily reliant on one thing. And props to them for being smart enough to get a quarterback that could run that kind of system. But there's only one Lamar Jackson. Let's be real here. The guy's a freak athlete.
Yeah.
So when he goes down, you're not going to win games.
He'll look mighty nice in green and white in the summer. So
Yeah, but he won't look really great in green and white when he's on the bench in December. That's the issue.
Sure.
So listen, I love Lamar Jackson. I would kill to have him be a Jet. But I'm worried about his injury history. He has not been healthy for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now maybe he'll do a little better because he'll be able to throw the ball a little bit more. The Jets have better receivers.
And rely on his running backs more.
But they also have a much worse offensive line. So
true.
We'll see.
I would venture if the Jets' offensive line could actually stay healthy for once, like you could argue they're better offensive line.
It's a pretty big if there, Jerg.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's the same thing with Lamar. When a guy shows you that he's got injury history and hasn't played like a full season in 3 straight years, my first instinct isn't to say, all right, maybe they'll be healthy this year. My first instinct is let's get someone else in here.
Yeah,
because that's what we have to do. Even if it's a training staff issue, if it's I don't know, whatever it is, they need to get reliable fail safes for your problem injuries.
I mean, it could also be a turf issue, and that's a non-starter because the league will not change that for anything.
Not that it can be a turf issue.
Yeah.
Sadly. Yeah. Which they really should, but then again, we know the NFL and their whole player safety thing.
Please, come on.
Player safety.
Yeah.
But yeah, two extremely close games. And also, my last comment, hindsight is 2020, but considering the Dolphins fired their defensive coordinator, like, I think that lets everything you need to know. Like, they shouldn't have been in that game.
Here's my thing also. I mean, the defensive coordinator got fired because all season they were not a good defensive team. Yeah. And they did step it up in that Bills game. But I'm sitting here watching this game, and I'm like, wow, Mike McDaniels is a really good coach. And then they call timeout on 3 different delay of game penalties. And I'm like, wow, Mike McDaniels is not a really good coach. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, then they like scheme Mike Gesicki open, and Skylar Thompson is like throwing darts and hitting guys for like small periods of time. And I'm like, wow, Mike McDaniels is a really good coach. And then he comes out at the end of the game when they got a delay of game on 4th down, and he goes, oh, I thought it was 1st down. And I'm like, wow, Mike McDaniels is a really bad coach. And I can't figure it out. All right.
He is frustrating.
He somehow had his team in prime position to win a playoff game in Buffalo with their 3rd string quarterback, and still also came out of that game looking like he didn't know what he was doing sometimes.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Like, it's wild.
He belongs as the chairman of FTX. That's what he belongs as.
It's wild.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is why I've been saying for weeks that I do not like him. I think he is a hipster doofus wonk. And any NFL coach that says the word dividends in an interview just doesn't deserve the attention that I think we give him.
But that's the thing, because like at one point, I kind of feel like he's the future of NFL offensive coaching. He knows the game in a way that is just like so productive. And you look at what he did with Tua in that offense. And I know they got Tyreek and they had Jalen Waddle, who had record-setting seasons, but like, Tyreek and Waddle didn't do much in the first half of that game, and they stayed relevant. They came back down from 2 touchdowns early in the game and stayed relevant against arguably the favorite to win a Super Bowl going into the season.
I know this isn't the point too, but you say he's the future of the offensive coaches, and yet if Sean Payton had said, I want to coach in Miami, he'd be fired instantly.
I don't know if that's true.
Hold
on. That might be true, but not based on rational thinking. It's based on the owner, Stephen Ross, and what he would do.
Which we know rational thought and Stephen Ross don't
do. A moron.
In a regular organization, knowing what they just did with all of the adversity they faced this year, with injuries, with poor defensive playing, he had that team in prime position many times. They could have clinched way earlier than the last week of the season. And it was a couple disappointments. Their starter quarterback kept getting injured with major injuries, by the way.
Getting concussed.
And through all of the things that they went through, if they're healthy next year, Tua comes back good, they're looking good. That's got to be a favorite for one of the top offenses in the NFL. And they're going to have a new look defense, which with the right coaching the year before was a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
They're in position to be an excellent team next year. They would have been in an even better position if they would have had 2 first-round picks instead of 1, but that's a different story.
Maybe Brian Flores will come back.
Not to Miami, probably. But
yeah, definitely not.
anyways, he was... he either is an excellent coach or he's got everyone fooled.
I think it's the
latter.
latter.
Up some of the little things.
I think it's the latter, and I will continue to stamp on that and say he is a hipster doofus wonk.
I think we could go with a pretty good in between. That I think he knows offensively he's one of the better minds, but he just wasn't ready for the moment in this case. And I think this is just one of those cases.
Take off your Miami Vice shades, dude. Wake up.
Well, a couple years of experience will do him well, I think.
Probably,
so let's see. Let's hope he learns from his experience, learns the down and distance, and can figure out how to get play calls in.
Realistically, with some of the yahoos that have had NFL head coaching gigs for like at least 5-6 years, like if Mike McDaniel can't make it to year 5 with the Dolphins, like we got a serious organizational problem there. Like there have been some coaches that did not deserve to make it to like
first year success, though, doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have success next year. I mean, teams are different from year to year. I don't know how many free agents Miami is going to have. I don't know what kind of roster changes they're going to go through.
But that's not on him. That's on the GM then.
But it is on him because realistically, no matter who you put on that team, if you don't perform, the coach gets fired. The GM may get fired too, but it doesn't matter who's on that field. They're going to say, "Here's 53 NFL players. You better win me some games."
Yeah. Well, not every team follows that.
And we've seen
Houston,
and we see the difference between teams that can do it and can't do it because the Giants right now were thought to be one of the worst teams in the NFL talent-wise coming into the year, and they're in a position to go to an NFC Championship game right now. You have to give that credit to the coach.
Perfect transition.
I was going to say, is that a transition?
Perfect transition to one of the last 2 games of the wildcard weekend that we're going to take a particular interest in. It was the popular pick for an upset going into it. The 3rd-seeded Minnesota Vikings, the fraudulent 13-4 bums that they are, versus the 9-7-1 New York Football Giants. What a game it was. It was at one point a 17-7 lead for the Giants, then 24-10. Then the Vikings tied it up, and then Saquon Barkley with a quick rushing touchdown with just under 8 to go in the 4th quarter. And then finally, ladies and gentlemen, the game was on the line, and Minnesota had the ball, and they didn't do it. But let's go to the Giants first. Daniel Jones put together his best performance of his career by far. I have said earlier this week that Daniel Jones, to me, has graduated from Danny Dimes to Danny Dollar Signs because that performance alone is going to get somebody to pay him this offseason a pretty decent contract. 301 yards for him in this game with 2 passing touchdowns, 24 of 35 passing, 17 carries for 78 yards, 0 interceptions, and I think 0 fumbles, if
that's
I'm
correct.
Reading statute correctly, 0 fumbles as well. So a completely turnover-free game from Daniel Jones. Who would have thought you'd see the day in the playoffs? But the New York Giants did indeed upset the Minnesota Vikings. Certainly impressive to say the very least. We talk about how come the playoffs, it's about your rushing attack and your defense. The Giants certainly were able to do that here with that combination. I just spoke about the running game. Saquon Barkley had 2 rushing touchdowns in this one, 9 carries for 53 yards. A total 142 rushing yards as a team. The Minnesota Vikings only 60 yards rushing from Dalvin Cook on just 13 carries. Kirk Cousins, 31 of 39 passing, 273 yards, 2 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson limited to 7 catches, yes, but only 47 yards on those 7 catches. And Adam Thielen only had 3 yards for himself. The leading receiver for Minnesota was TJ Hawkinson, 10 for 129. Pretty good game for old Hawkinson. There are a lot of different ways that we could go down analyzing this game, but I think before we really get down to it, we got to talk about the defining play of this game. Let me set you a scene, boys. 144 left in the 4th quarter. 4th and 8, Minnesota Vikings. Your season is on the line. Your 13-win campaign that, yes, you could feel good about as an organization, but your 13-win campaign that everyone has been saying is fraudulent is on the line. and you line up in shotgun, you drop back to pass. You need 8 yards cleanly. And the decision Kirk Cousins made was to throw it not 8 yards, not 9 or 10 yards or more, not even 6 yards to where maybe the receiver could have fought for 2 more, which is actually kind of realistic. I wouldn't have faulted him for that. You threw it 3 yards. Old Captain Checkdown Charlie, prime time Kirk Cousins proves what I have been saying on this show for a good while now. What I've been saying for years, and granted, I think most of the NFL community would agree, is that when the sun goes down, when the lights are off from the natural source in the universe, but when the lights go on in the stadium, Kirk Cousins can't make the final play to win the goddamn game. The Minnesota Vikings deserve to lose this game because they were the most fraudulent 13-win team we have seen in quite a while. Even more fraudulent than some of the recent Packers 13-win teams and Tennessee's team last year. I want to say got 13 wins, funny enough. Minnesota, you had the chance to prove everyone wrong. You used it. And Kirk Cousins, you had the chance to prove everyone wrong. I'm going to go on my whole spiel real quick before I toss it to the boys. This was not surprising. I said from the very start of the season, the boys can back me up on this. I always questioned this Minnesota Vikings defense. I thought the defense, even with some of the performances they had early in the season, they were kind of overrated. I did not fear that pass rush. I did not think their linebacking core was that elite overall. And I kept saying the secondary is inexperienced. It's young, aside from Patrick Peterson. And even him, he is not the same Patrick Peterson that was in Arizona. If he was, he'd still be in Arizona. There's a reason why he's not in Arizona anymore. This was a team that got very lucky in a lot of early games early in the season, and we eventually started to see it unravel. And aside from the one miracle they got against the Buffalo Bills, which really hindsight 2020 is a bad loss for the Bills considering how the Viking season ended, this is the same team that got smoked by the Dallas Cowboys 40-3. This is the same team that got a little brothered once again by the Green Bay Packers in the second meeting of the season by a very comfortable margin. At the end of the day, suffice it to say, the Vikings continue to prove why they are frauds. Always have been, always will be. Now, would I have loved for it to end on a missed field goal per usual? Yes. But I think this was even more poetic. The fact that the Minnesota Vikings are responsible for Daniel Jones going to be paid at least a $70+ million contract. I'm probably lowballing it, but let me just stick with that number at first. They are responsible for Daniel Jones is going to get paid significantly by somebody. And this is why I made the Jacksonville Jaguars comparison earlier. Because Blake Bortles won one playoff game en route to the AFC Championship game. And the Jaguars stuck with him. New York Giants are going to most likely pay Daniel Jones after this one playoff win. Good for him. I give Daniel Jones his props. Danny dollar signs and all that. He did step up. But, man, this team is fraudulent as all hell. Minnesota Vikings, not a good team. Not a good team. And if they somehow would have advanced past this, who would they have faced? They would have faced the 49ers.
San Francisco.
Oh, the 49ers would have crushed them by 50. It would have been bad. It would have been a massacre in the Bay Area. So those are my thoughts that I have continued to say about the Vikings. And lo and behold, it all rings true. Rick, I throw it to you first. Is there anything else to say?
So let me say one quick thing in defense of Kirk Cousins here. Now, the fourth down play, bad as it was, the matchup actually was pretty good. TJ Hawkinson, who had been breaking tackles left and right, was in one-on-one against Xavier McKinney. It wasn't like he was in double or triple coverage. It was a one-on-one play short. So clearly the Giants had covered everything deep. And Hawkinson was your best receiver. So I get it. It is a check down, but Hawkinson, you got to get out of that tackle because you've been getting out of tackles left and right all game long. Now, that aside, the Vikings are a fraudulent team. Absolutely. What does it say about the Giants? This band of misfits, the cast-offs from the island of misfit toys, basically. Isaiah Hodgins, who was on the Bills practice squad for weeks, gets called up, 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Richie James, who fumbles 2 punt returns against the mighty Seahawks, comes back and has a pretty solid game for them. Darius Slayton, who was always a third-tier option. Daniel Bellinger, a rookie tight end. And the renaissance that is Daniel Jones has been something incredible to hold on to. And this team looks really good with Brian Dable as the head coach, who is lighting the fire underneath these guys to get them going. Mike Kafka's offense is smart. It's allowing Daniel Jones to have his best season. Like, this is the guy who had 7 combined turnovers this year. He threw 7 picks last year. Just interceptions. So he's done well. Saquon Barkley has been an absolute revelation. But for everything you can say about the Minnesota defense being terrible, Wink Martindale should be coordinator of the year in the NFL. He has turned this Giants defense into a team that is frightening. For a team that doesn't have the guys that you would expect them to have. They don't have a big sack leader. They don't have a big tackle guy, but they're a team that's a unit that knows how to play for each other. This is arguably, and this was house money, this game for the Giants. Getting to the playoffs this year was an absolute win for them. In year one of the Brian Table system, they got the game they wanted against the Vikings. They got the lead. They got the win. And now, again, you're playing the Eagles, who you've seen twice at full strength. Everything is coming up Giants in this respect. And yeah, Daniel Jones will get paid. So will Saquon Barkley. And I would be hesitant to say this, but let's be real, it'd be hilarious. If there isn't a call from Daniel Jones from a Minnesota zip code or an area code that says, listen, you beat us, I'd have to play for us and we'll give you all this money. He won't take it, but I mean, you never know. Great win for the Giants. And again, a team that goes into this week with house money once again. I would say of all the teams that are there, they're the team that has nothing to lose the most out of anybody else because nobody expected them to be here. And they are 2 wins away from the Super Bowl, 3 wins away from another title, which would be the biggest surprise, I think, in the NFL this year. If they do end up winning the Super Bowl, it'll be a great surprise, great story. But let me tell you something. I think only one of us, I believe, had the Vikings in the playoffs this year. I think it was Justin, because I didn't pick them in the playoffs. Because of the Lions, but I didn't pick them in the playoffs. And I think you had the Packers, but I don't think you had the Vikings as a wild card team.
I had the Viking as a wild card team.
You did, but I don't think you did. I think you had the Vikings third or second, but not making the playoffs, the wild card team. So that just shows we believe they were frauds, and they were frauds.
Justin, anything more to add?
Yeah, well, look, I agree with you on the fourth down play. I think it was they kind of got the look they wanted, and it was just poor execution.
Yeah.
I mean, Hawkinson was right. You're right, breaking tackles all day, and the idea is if he cuts in enough and turns the other way, he's got the outside corner with momentum to the first down. And it was poor execution. It was thrown kind of behind him. He had to stop and jump. He didn't make the greatest cut. He didn't fool Xavier McKinney or anyone that was watching that play. So, yeah, it's not that it was the worst play call. It's not that it was a check down. It was that the whole play was just executed poorly. That being said, you guys, I don't understand why the Vikings are a fraud, yet the Giants are heroes. I mean, it was an excellent game between 2 evenly matched teams. They were very evenly matched. And if the 49ers are going to get blown out, if the 49ers are going to blow out the Vikings, if the Vikings would have played, then they would have blown out the Giants too. It is what it is. If they weren't going to beat the Eagles, I can't imagine that the Giants are, even with all of these new pieces. I mean, maybe it's a different Eagles team, and we'll see that later today. But you just got to give credit where credit was due. Like, it was a good game. It was a well-executed game from both teams. One defense obviously played a little bit better against the powerhouse offense than another defense played against a middle-of-the-pack offense. But that being said, it was fun to watch. Both teams went back and forth. You know, it was just a good game. And I will say, I understand why the defensive coordinator did get eventually released, in Minnesota. But you got to give credit to where credit is due. That Vikings offense all year, for the most part, was a powerhouse offense. You know, they had a couple of games where they fell behind 33 points in a half, but they were a really good offensive team, and the defense kind of let them go. So I expect to see a lot of big defensive moves in Minnesota this offseason.
I just think, yeah, they allowed 400 yards per game on the defensive side, so I agree they need a lot on the defensive end there. But it goes to show you, and it's an adage, but it goes to show you that if you have a great offense, that's wonderful. But if you don't have a good enough defense,
you're not going to win.
No.
Team game. You got to be good on both sides of the ball.
You gotta at least be middle of the pack.
I think the reason why, and Jared, you can correct me on this, I think the reason why we called the Vikings frauds were how can you be a 10-2 team and one of your losses be a 40-3 shellacking by the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah.
It's like
The Cowboys are a good team.
They are, but if you're 9-2 going into that game, coming off of a big win against the Bills,
look, they've had major losses to 3 out of 4 NFC East teams.
Okay, but Justin, look,
Eagles shellacked them on Monday night.
Yeah,
the Cowboys absolutely decimated them, and the Giants won a good game in the playoffs. Like, look, they played a good division. I'm not sitting here saying that the Vikings deserve to be in the Super Bowl and they shouldn't have lost that game. I'm saying, let's give credit where credit is due. They weren't a complete football team. In fact, they were probably the most one-sided football team I've seen in a long time, in which one side of the ball was very clearly playoff caliber, and one side of the ball was clearly not. The only other team that I can think of that was like that is the New York Jets, who had a top 5 defense this year and had one of the worst offenses I've ever seen on a professional team.
But that's
fair.
Look, listen to these teams. Let's go. I point out the fact 13 wins, but let's go to at least even 11, 12 win teams. Dallas Cowboys plus 125 point differential. Eagles plus 133 point differential. Kansas City plus 127. Cincinnati Bengals plus 96, and then the Buffalo Bills plus 169. Nice. The Minnesota Vikings negative 3 point differential. I'm not saying it's the offense's fault that they had a negative 3 point differential. What I'm saying is that still makes you fraudulent if you're a 13-win team and your point differential is negative. They're frauds. I'm not saying the offense is frauds. I'm saying the team as a whole is fraudulent.
I know. Look, look. They were the 3rd worst defense in points allowed. They were, I think, the worst defense in total yards allowed. I'm not sitting here and saying that they were the best team, but offensively, they were one of the best offenses in the league this year. You have to give credit where credit is due. And you could sit there and say that they're frauds all you want. They won 13 games this year.
Yeah. And they lost in the first round.
Should have been 12. The Commanders should have beaten them.
You can make the argument. But look, they were in every single game. Look, the Bills should have beaten them too. They fumbled in the end zone at the end of the game.
Yeah.
They should. You could make the argument they should have won 10 games. The fact is, they were a double-digit win team. They won their division. They won most of their divisional games. They deserved to be in the playoffs. They deserved to be in the position they were in, and they couldn't capitalize. They weren't as good as some of other playoff teams, but they weren't the worst team in the NFC playoffs. Not by a long shot.
That was Tampa.
Yeah, okay.
That's fair. That part's fair, but yeah.
Right?
Second worst still.
Yeah. Still fraudulent.
Thank you.
You can make the argument that, listen, they didn't have the worst. They wouldn't have the worst loss last week. They played a playoff caliber team, and they were within seconds of beating that team. It's true. If there was more time on the clock, if they had one more set of downs, they could have come back and they could have scored. They could score against any team in the NFL. Their offense is that good. Their defense is not. But
that's why overall
listen, and I'm not arguing that that they're the best team in the NFL. But I'm arguing they probably would have beat a different wild card team.
But you're saying we shouldn't call them frauds, but you keep just pointing to the offense. But you just said it's offense and defense. Like, yes, you are fraudulent because at the end of the day, you lost the game to a team you should have been better than. You were 4 wins better than
they're still a good football team. They're not a complete football team. They're a good football team.
I don't know if they're a good football team.
You don't think they're a top half football team in the NFL?
Is that the standard for good? Then yes.
They're a C minus med student. Sure.
Wait, they didn't deserve to beat the play. Well, let's look at the teams that just missed the playoffs. All right, okay. I'm going to bring off the NFC playoff.
Well, the Lions are clearly better than they are.
The Packers destroyed them the second game, so the Packers are. I would take them over Minnesota.
I take Taylor Heineke over Kirk Cousins any day of the week.
I don't know if I would go that far, so maybe you wouldn't be there, Justin.
You don't have to, but I will.
That's the thing. If I'm willing to take 2 of the teams in your own division that missed the playoffs over you, that's bad. Like, you're a fraudulent team.
It's they destroyed the Packers in the first game.
But then when late in the season, when it mattered more, when there was something on, the Packers smoked them.
They beat.
But you can't just you cannot just use that logic and say yes, he could go off against anyone when they clearly could not do that early in the season. Like the Packers, a team that ended up missing the playoffs, a team that it was said on this podcast was clearly out of it, would have 0 shot of being a realistic threat. Late in the season, they beat the Dallas Cowboys, who are now in the NFC divisional round, and they smoked the team that ended up winning their division. They proved yet again that even though in a year where the Packers missed the playoffs, in a year where it was an off year for Aaron Rodgers, an off year for that organization, They are still little brother. Point, end of story. The Vikings will be little brother for as long as it needs to be until they finally break their demons. And this was never going to be the quarterback.
They just won the NFC North.
It doesn't matter because they couldn't win a
They
playoff
won
game.
5 more full games than the Packers.
And they couldn't do anything
They
in the
lost
playoffs.
one
I need to get a book. I'll be right back.
Season series.
Rick, you're not going anywhere. You know that.
That's true.
They split this year.
They're still little brother. They're still little brother. They're still little brother in every way, shape, or form. And yes, they were frauds this season. However you want to try to dice it, however you want to say, if you give them an extra thing, coulda, woulda, shoulda. If ifs and buts were candies and nuts, yes, the Minnesota Vikings would be happier this week and they would have made the divisional round. They didn't. And that's the end of it. Like, signed, sealed, and delivered.
I'm not arguing that they should be outside. They should have made it to the divisional round. I'm arguing that they're not frauds. They were clearly a playoff team.
They're definitely frauds. You can be a playoff team, but be a fraud. like that. Like,
no, they deserve to be
This episode
there.
got really truculent really quickly, and I had nothing to do with it.
Would you like to come back into the fold, Rick?
How about we talk about the Chargers? We want to talk about a team that's a fraud. Let's talk about them.
Transition. Nah, Justin's going to say they're not a fraud. Don't worry. So the Los Angeles Chargers were up 27-0. I love you, Justin. You know that.
Let me say this.
All
right. Let me say this.
Oh, boy.
The San Diego Chargers.
Los Angeles.
Wherever
Who's the quarterback?
With Justin Burrow as their quarterback.
The Chargers have an excellent quarterback. They have a top running back. They played an excellent game and like several times this year. They played so well, and in the second half they got absolutely destroyed and did not deserve to be anywhere near that stadium. I don't understand how they still have the head coach still has a job. Much like this rant, it was very pro Chargers in the beginning, and then it was completely turned around. I do not understand. If you want to talk about fraudulence, that team, I don't understand how you play such a good game in the first half and then completely lose. They looked like the Colts.
Ooh.
They looked like the Colts.
You think they'll interview Jeff Saturday for offensive coordinator?
No, hell no. Good Lord,
Colts just completed his head coaching interview. So,
oh god.
Well, Rich Bisaccia also completed his head coaching interview for the Colts too.
I hope he gets a second chance.
I do too. So look, the Chargers were up 27-0 in this game, and it looked like it was all done for because for many, many weeks the Chargers have been a quality team in the AFC West. Injuries be damned, it was the case. But let's talk about this for a minute here. Before this game even started, there was the whole, why is Brandon Staley playing these guys in Week 18 in a game that means nothing? And then Mike Williams gets hurt with a fractured back. Jacksonville came out in the second half. Doug Peterson clearly said something in the locker room that worked for them. Maybe, listen, it's 0-0. Let's go out and win the second half because this literally is a tale of two halves written by the great John Madden or Charles Dickens, whoever wrote the book. I don't even know anymore. But regardless, it's more of a matter of the Chargers just stopped playing football. They basically aided the Jaguars because they just stopped playing football. And there's a couple of things that I want to say about this too. Great win for Jacksonville. Terrible broadcast by Al Michaels. Horrible job by Bosa of getting that ridiculous penalty. Know the moment. And Trevor Lawrence's streak continues. He's now what 37-0 on Saturdays,
something like that.
So I don't know. And let me also just throw this out there. And Justin, I'm going to offend you, and I apologize for this, but Trevor Lawrence is the most Christian quarterback there is. So you want to talk about divine intervention? The guy hasn't lost on Saturday, 37-0, because he prays on Sunday for a win on Saturday. When he goes back the next Sunday, he thanks God and prays again for another win. Goes back and wins again, and the cycle continues. So
think he's going to win today?
I mean, if anybody can stop him, it's Andy Reid. If anybody can stop him, it's Andy Reid. But I'm just saying, to get to 37-0, there's clearly some divine intervention there.
Look,
or you've just always played on stacked teams your whole career.
True.
You want to talk about fraudulence? Honestly, I know the Chargers got healthy at the right time, and I was all on their bandwagon. But look at their last 7 games. You know why they're 6-1 in their last 7 games?
Because all the teams they beat sucked.
Because they played the Cardinals, the Raiders.
Yeah.
They lost, by the way, to the Raiders. Then they played the Dolphins in a very good game. They won. Tua was still healthy. Fine. Give you credit. Then they beat the Titans, who were not great. The Colts, the Rams. Rams with Baker Mayfield, by the way. And then they lost to the Broncos in a meaningless last game of the season. So they were 5-2 in their last 7 games.
By the way, Justin, here's the thing, though. We may disagree on the Vikings thing. We agree on the Chargers thing as a whole. I was literally asking, why is Staley still have a job?
They lost in Week 18 to a guy who hadn't coached football in 30 years or something like that.
Well, I mean, that was his second week as the interim coach. So
exactly.
But it's flabbergasted. Like, I'm flabbergasted to actually see.
I'm not.
I'm flabbergasted. I used the word flabbergasted on a podcast. We expected so much from this team going into the season.
Someone had them 16-1.
So many big name signings.
Who was that?
You know what? Ridiculous Commanders level decisions, predictions aside. We expected so much from this Chargers team. Justin Herbert was going to take a step forward. They were going to be great. And I understand that they had a ton of injuries in the early goings of the season. Justin Herbert has rib injury. They had lost Rashawn Slater for a long period of time. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen didn't play a lot of games. They were not great, even when they were healthy. They really weren't. There was something off about this team the entire time. They looked better last year as a non-playoff team than they did this year. And that's an issue. And it's got to start with coaching. And I'll keep saying it this year because it's really, I think, what the difference was in a lot of my predictions is that a lot of the teams with new coaches didn't live up to the hype because the coaches didn't know how to get these teams over that hump. I mean, look at all the teams. Look at all the teams that I thought was going to be good. The Raiders, the Saints.
Well, that was just you on this podcast.
I had a wild card team, but true.
If Jameis Winston would have had the season he had in Tampa Bay, but the last year he was when he had 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions, they probably would have been a playoff team this year.
And they would have lost by 3 scores with 3 interceptions.
I'm not arguing that, but I'm not sitting here saying they would have been world beaters. They would have been a good team.
Okay, so Raiders, Saints.
Hold on, I got to look at the teams now.
Broncos.
I didn't have the Broncos. I had the Broncos last place in their division.
I
Tampa Bay.
I mean, I think we all had them last in the division.
Yeah, Tampa, yeah. But again, that's another team that was beset by injuries too a little bit as well.
True.
Wirfs, Jensen.
Indianapolis.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I don't think it was injury. I think we just thought better of them than.
And the teams that I had taking a step back that have good coaches all played well. Seattle, New England.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, technically, the Patriots did take a step back. They made the playoffs last year, and they missed this year.
Well, but we thought they were going to be worse than they actually ended up being. They were competitive until Week 18.
I mean, they went 8-9 as opposed to.
I knew McCorkle Jones wasn't going to be that good this year. So.
Yeah, I mean,
fraud.
You know what I mean? So, coaching had such a large impact on a lot of these teams, and you're seeing now teams that had a lot of talent but were not coached properly have not done anything. And there are teams with less talent, with good coaches, that are here on the stage today.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, New York Giants. I mean, you could even make the argument that the Eagles, they took a step forward because Sirianni has been an excellent coach. Jalen Hurts had an MVP-like season, but he got that way because of coaching. He got that way because he understands what's going on, and they're putting him in positions to win. GM also was fantastic. He made excellent pickups. But they're a good team for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's got a lot to do with it. And Brandon Staley just clearly wasn't cutting it. And I still don't think is cutting it. But he's going to get a third season?
Yeah. I don't get that either because Dean Spanos is the quickest trigger finger I think I've ever seen. And yet Brandon Staley goes from a terrible gaffe last year, missing the playoffs, to a terrible gaffe leading them into the playoffs this year, an even worse game, and yet he's the one left standing.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I really don't.
Well, we've pointed this out with a couple cases here, but Tom Telesco has been the GM of that team for about a decade or so.
And what have they done? in a decade.
No, but here's my point. Correct me if I'm wrong. So before Staley, it was Anthony Lynn. Before Anthony Lynn as head coach was it Norv Turner, or was there someone else in between?
Mike McCoy was there for a bit too, wasn't he?
Oh God, I forgot about Mike McCoy.
Yeah.
So we have Anthony Lynn, we have Mike McCoy. I'm pretty sure Mike McCoy was Telesco's first head coach hire. Anthony Lynn was second, and now you have Staley third. If he would choose to fire Staley, that would be his fourth head coach within the span of about a decade.
Yeah,
it's very rare for general managers to get fourth head coaches. I think there has to be something internally. But I know you mentioned Spanos having the trigger finger, Rick. I think there's got to be something internally where Spanos had to have told Telesco, look, if you fire him, he's going with you, or you're going with him, because he's your third coach. GMs rarely, in any sport, how many general managers even make it to the third coach confidently? Sometimes they get fired after the second.
Steve Keim.
What is the survival rate? I feel weird labeling it that, but what is the survival rate of a guy getting to a chance to hire his fourth head coach in less than a decade? Or a decade or so. That's the thing. It's like
not easy to find the right guys. You know, people. I've noticed a lot in the NFL. There's guys that get hired based on their ability to pick a staff, and there are guys that are hired based on their ability to pick players, and it's hard to find both. You know, not everyone could be Trent Baalke, Jerg, with picking a great team and finding the right coach to get them in playoff position. But,
shots fired.
Wait. Hold on.
Shots fired. No. Now I am going to go read a book. You two are going to go fight again.
You're talking about the guy that broke up that San Francisco team? You're talking about the guy that got you.
Podcast listeners, mommy and daddy are having a fight again.
I'm not. First of all, Podfather.
I was going to say, what makes you the kid?
No, I'm not a Trent Baalke fan, but you do have to give credit where credit is due. He has the ability to pick talent on both sides of the ball. He finds some way to screw it up.
Do I have to?
Why? He got that 49ers team to Super Bowl.
Do I need to go back at all the first round picks that dude completely whiffed on?
Not this week. Another week, a future week.
Do you know what percentage of draft picks are very good for like even the top teams?
Justin, if I give you a first round pick for 6 straight years and you whiff on 5 out of the 6, you're not a good general manager.
Wait, did he do that?
I'm pretty sure he was close to it.
Oh boy!
And Alden Smith was the only good one, and he eventually went out of the league. So I'm gonna have to push that to the side.
My NFL draft acuity is not at all like the Podfather over here. But listen, I'm not saying that he's going to hit on every pick. Do you know how often NFL GMs hit? Of course, you hit on more first round picks than you do other ones. But the best GMs hit on what, 35-40% of their picks?
Here's my thing. Who would have thought a Chargers conversation would lead to Trent Baalke breakdown? My thing is not just the on the field acquisitions, although that is a big aspect of it. My thing is he was the guy that hired Jim Harbaugh. Yes. He's also the guy that turned that organization against Harbaugh, that made it the environment it eventually became, that completely ruined it. He's the guy
I'm not arguing with that. Like I said, I'm not a Trent Baalke guy. I started this conversation off saying I'm not actually a Trent Baalke guy. But he does have a history of picking the right people. I don't know how he keeps.
And then he screws it up.
I don't know how he keeps screwing it up.
Justin, I made this.
He keeps screwing it up. I'll give you that.
Justin, I've made this analogy before. I don't think I've made it on the show. If your neighbor, Justin, because let's say you have a really cool neighbor, right? And they bake you a cake.
Justin? Oh, go on.
I mean, if you want to make him Justin,
you said my neighbor Justin.
Let's say you have a neighbor, Justin, and out of a random act of kindness, he bakes you a cake one day. It's your favorite flavor by chance as well. Yes, he just gives you a cake. And it's like, thank you, I appreciate that. Like, he's a nice guy, right? That was a super nice thing. And then 2 weeks later, you see on the news that he committed a murder. Are you going to think to yourself, man, my neighbor is still a nice guy because he made me that cake? Or, oh my God, he committed such a heinous act. You can start off well. If you end it horribly like Trent Baalke always does, it's no bueno. Like, no, I'm not giving Trent Baalke any credit.
Time out here. Now you've opened the door. What kind of cake did he make me? What did he use for frosting? Like, these are important questions. You're asking the wrong questions, Jerry. Like, this is what I want to know.
What do you know about Trent Baalke that the rest of us don't? What did he do to you, Jared? No, look, I think he should have been fired last year. It would have made perfect sense for them to get rid of him. They were a clown shoe organization last year. They were a joke of an organization.
Wait, why a clown shoe?
The way they brought in Urban Meyer, they had this highly touted offense.
No, but why just the shoe? Why just the shoe?
Because Urban Meyer's a clown with one shoe on, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So
Urban Meyer's Pennywise the Grinding Clown.
I would say Cloud Show, but if you just want to limit it to the show, I mean,
now look, they were not a great organization last year. They literally had fans showing up to their Week 18 games dressed as clowns in protest of their general manager. Okay.
Now, to be fair, also, and I hate to do this to you, Jerg, but Trent Baalke didn't miss on all except for Aldon Smith in his draft with the Niners because he did also pick Eric Reed. And Eric Reed went to the Pro Bowl the next year.
And then flamed out of the team eventually.
Did he also pick Alex Smith?
No,
he was.
He did Aldon Smith, AJ Jenkins from Illinois in the next. That was the number 30 pick. So that's
AJ Jenkins was from Illinois.
Yeah, Eric Reed, Jimmy Ward, who again was a late first round pick, and then Eric Armstead, who you could argue probably could have been a better player if he wasn't beset by injuries that have happened to him. So.
I'll give Baalke credit. He's not the one that gave Armstead that extension that cost him DeForest Buckner.
Exactly.
He wasn't there anymore, to be fair, but at the same time.
So, but again, it's not so much sometimes the talent evaluators, it's the talent themselves that don't exactly do the job they should be doing.
There's only so much you could do.
Why do you think Sandoval's not here anymore?
That's on you.
He was on here for too long.
Yeah, he was. We jumped the shark and the reindeer.
No, look, again, I'm not a Baalke guy. I'm really not. But you have to give credit where credit is due. And he has brought in, on more than one occasion, the right players and the right coaches to make his team relevant.
And also screwed it up.
He did it in Jacksonville.
And also screwed it up.
He hasn't screwed up anything in Jacksonville yet. He started with the screw up this time, so maybe it won't end in a screw up. But look, he's got them in position. They have a good quarterback. Not great. He did throw 4 interceptions in the first quarter.
He bounced back, though.
He did bounce back, but they are in position to make noise in the AFC. And listen, I'm not saying they're going to win today, but if they play a competitive game and all of a sudden they have assets to add to this team next year with a good coach and Doug Peterson, who has put together a good staff, he's proven he could win a Super Bowl, and all of a sudden they can really add pieces to this team, they're going to be a really good team going forward. They have young receivers. They have a really young quarterback. They have a second-year running back who's playing really well. Their offensive line is revamped. Their defense is playing well. They're a good team.
They're also taking advantage of a division that is trash.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that's what good teams do. Good teams don't play down to their competition. That's what you're going to say, Justin. Exactly. They don't do that.
Play them 17 games this year. They played them 6.
Right.
And they were a 9-win team.
Right. The Jaguars aren't playing down to their competition because you can't play down to teams like the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans because there's just nothing there, really. I mean, for any of them. And so,
they were close games there, but they won most of them. So
right, but wins are wins. Close games we did. Wins are wins. But the point of the matter is that this is a team that has a year ahead of schedule gotten to the last 4 of the AFC. Where Jacksonville's picking the 25 to 32. When does that happen?
Never.
Exactly. So
that's wait.
Itself.
I did not criticize the Jaguars as a whole.
You criticized Trent Baalke.
Yeah, I would fire him tomorrow.
I mean,
you can't. No.
Yes, I would.
That's wrong. If you last year, I agree with you 100%. Last year,
the only way Trent Baalke can be fired is if he shows up to the game today in a WWE T-shirt.
What?
Who hurt you?
Come on. Yes.
How did he hurt you?
By still having a job when he didn't deserve a second GM opportunity.
There's something else there. This is like the Titans all over again.
Nah.
Rick says we need to move on.
Rule 54.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, quickly, our divisional round predictions, because I think we basically handled all the analysis of what these teams can do to win.
We do have to make Super Bowl predictions this week, too. We said we were going to
we do. Yeah, okay, we'll do that after this. Let's start in the AFC side of things with this. I mean, we just talked about this team all the live long day. Chiefs, Jaguars. Is anyone picking the Jaguars? Are you actually?
For the chaos. Why not?
Okay,
Let's do it. For the chaos. Listen, again, there's something to be said for Trevor Lawrence doesn't lose on Saturdays. It's a young, hungry defense that arguably, like the Giants defense, has nothing to lose by playing this game. And as we saw last year, all it takes is one bad quarter, one bad half for Pat Mahomes to get rattled, and that could be the difference. So
let me just say this. The Chiefs defense, talent-wise, does not have the playmakers that the Chargers do.
Right.
True.
I don't expect Trevor Lawrence to have 4 first-half interceptions this week. I mean, they have a habit of playing from behind. But if they're going to do that, it's because Pat Mahomes is going to go off in the first half, not because the Jaguars are not going to perform. Best believe that Doug Peterson's going to have that team in playing shape today, and I really do expect this to be a closer game than people think that it's going to be.
I want an SAOC fashion and lore. The last play of the game, Trevor Lawrence scrambles into the end zone, goes to throw, and there is Christian Kirk for the game-winning touchdown.
How glorious that would be.
That would be amazing.
You do realize if the Jaguars also beat the Chiefs, not only would Christian Kirk have cost the Tennessee Titans winning the division because A.J. Brown wanted to get paid, he would have cost the Chiefs advancing to the AFC Championship game because Tyreek Hill wanted to get paid.
Let's keep this narrative going, man.
The butterfly effect of Christian Kirk is just absolutely wild.
We have to do a full episode
Jones, baby.
Yeah.
Underrated signing of the year.
Of the decade.
Yes.
He's played really well coming down the stretch.
He has. He absolutely has.
He makes big plays.
Yeah.
Big time plays,
big
time
fantasy
plays.
championship.
Justin, are you picking the Chiefs?
No. Oh, yes. Chiefs, yes. I thought you were going to ask me if I was picking the Jaguars.
No.
Yeah.
All right. I'm also picking the Chiefs.
Can't name 3 Jaguars players and then ask me if I'm picking the Chiefs.
Right.
I'm picking the Chiefs. Yeah.
All right. So 2-1 Chiefs to Jags on the show. This is going to be the most interesting one. Buffalo Bills, Cincinnati Bengals. Who do you guys have winning? Justin, I start with you.
Bengals. It's just they match up well. You know what I mean? There's a reason that the Bengals have been giant killers. And that's because they can control the ball better than any team in the NFL. They control the pace better than any team in the NFL. Yes, Buffalo could explode at any second, drive down the field, throw a touchdown. The Bengals have the ability to do that. They have the ability to slow down the ball. They have the best running game out of those juggernauts. They have a very good offensive line. I know they're missing some linemen this week, and their defense is underrated. They've had some issues. You know, the secondary has been rough. Eli Apple has not played great, which is so surprising. But they are. I think they're probably the most complete offensive team that's left in the playoffs in the AFC, and they have arguably the best defense left. You might want to give it to the Bills, but look, I thought they were going to win in Cincinnati. I had picked them to win that game. Joe Burrow just has something in his blood that makes him a winner. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him this year.
Joe Cool, baby. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm also picking the Cincinnati Bengals over the Buffalo Bills. I just think Rick kind of mentioned it before when we were talking about the Dolphins-Bills game. Josh Allen still has a lot of that reckless in him, and you cannot afford to make those mistakes against a team that would way more take advantage of it compared to what the Dolphins did.
They do the same thing they did in the Dolphins game.
Bengals would win.
The Bengals will win.
Absolutely.
That's the difference.
You mentioned it. I think this Bengals team has been underrated in terms of the crop of talent they have. I legitimately think offensively, they need a tight end to really complete the skill position group. But you got Jamar Chase. When healthy, you got Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd as your 1, 2, and 3. That's arguably the best 1, 2, 3 in the NFL in terms of receivers. You got Joe Mixon, who's a really great running back. If they just all they need is a dynamic tight end to that team, and they would be easily the best all-around offense by a mile.
Well, he's not Travis Kelce and he's not Mark Andrews, but they do have Hayden Hurst there, who's had a very good season. He missed the last 4 games due to injury, but if you look at his stats, he had a very, very good year.
But just imagine if he was your tight end too, though. If he was your tight end too, and you had someone better than him, they would be even more lethal. But yeah, I'm going with the Bengals because I think they're heavily underappreciated. And
any offense would be better with Travis Kelce. But
yeah, I'm not saying Kelce. I'm just saying someone better than Hayden Hurst. But no, I also think the Bengals defense is very underrated. I think Jesse Bates is one of the most underrated safeties that a lot of people don't give enough credit to. I think Trey Hendrickson and Hubbard on the pass rush are big. That we forget that Bengals front 4 and front 7 made a couple key plays in the playoffs last year in both the divisional round and the AFC Championship game to get them to the superb owl in and of itself. I'm going with the Bengals.
You guys are ridiculous.
Oh, someone who picked 3 division winners in the NFC side and none of them made the playoffs?
No. The point of me saying that is that you've got a reserve left tackle and a reserve right tackle starting for the Bengals today. So the blind side is going to be covered by somebody who is Jackson Carman, who I have no faith in. And the right guard and the right tackle, the right side of your line is reserves as well. I don't know. Not against this Bills pass rush. No, sir. Give me the Bills.
They haven't been as lethal since Von Miller got injured. They
haven't been, but all it takes is Matt Milano or Ed Oliver or Ebenezer. Somebody is going to get through.
Look, I'm not saying that the Bengals offensive line is not going to give up a sack today. I'm saying you have to respect the way Joe Burrow can get that pass out at any point. If you continuously send that pass rush after him, he's going to carve you up in the secondary.
Yeah. I understand
if you don't sit back and defend the secondary, then there are a lot of underneath options in Samaje Perine or P. Ryan and Joe Mixon and their tight ends who have all played very well this season, and they could either dump it off or they could run the ball. And they are the most, even with their offensive line being banged up, they're still the most balanced offense left in the AFC.
This is also a Bills team that the secondary has not been healthy this entire season. If this was a fully healthy Bills secondary,
crazy.
I would have picked them.
Their defense has been really good.
Right. They know how to pick defensive backs. But if this was a fully healthy secondary, I probably would go with the Bills, excuse me. But like you're putting, like I know Jamar Chase is the number one guy. If even for a play he gets matched up to the number 2 corner, he's gonna catch a 50-yard bomb. Like it's not even close. Like the Bengals can dice up this Bills defense. I think we're not giving enough credence to that.
I don't know. I look at this more as like a prove it type of game, like for Buffalo, because this is a team that has been kind of there but not there. They have not had a signature win in the postseason, and this would be a signature win in the postseason for them if they can get it done. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think it's probably going to be maybe the best game of the weekend of the 4 we've got. But my money's on Buffalo. I think in this scenario and in this situation, I think there's enough for Josh Allen and for this Bills team to overcome all of that. And, if it leads to them hosting the AFC title game, I think it's going to be ridiculously insane. I might go to Buffalo for that game, for that matter. I might go and paint my body blue and be joining Bills Mafia for that game. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? But I think it's Buffalo's time. I think it's Buffalo's time, and I think it's the game that's going to get them over the hump. So I think Buffalo takes it. Close game, but I think Buffalo takes it.
You know what? You've convinced me to root against my pick because I would love a picture of Rick painted blue in Buffalo with no shirt in the stands. And
it's not going to happen.
You know what? The way you stood by your Commander's pick, you need to stand by that pick. Let's go, Bills. Let's do it. I want to see it happen.
I'll stand by it.
So you're also going to reverse your Chiefs Jaguars pick, Justin?
No, I'm not reversing any pick. I'm just rooting against myself.
Oh, okay.
I listen. It's about winning.
I'm a very convincing individual when I want to be.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's a win-win situation for me. Either I'm right and I know football really well, or I'm wrong and I get to watch Rick shirtless in negative 10-degree weather in Buffalo. I hope
he's not doing that. He's not going to be shirtless in Buffalo.
I mean, I might be, but I can't guarantee you. I can't guarantee it'll be January. It might be August, but I can't guarantee it'll be January. But I'll be there. I'll do that. Sure.
All right then. Moving to the NFC side of things, let's start with the number 1 seed again. The New York Football Giants going up against the top seed Philadelphia Eagles. Who we got winning this one, lads? Let me start with. I'll start with myself. I'll go with the Eagles. It's not a blowout. I don't think it'll be a blowout. I think the Giants are going to keep it close for like 3 quarters. And I think the Eagles make 1 or 2 plays in the 4th quarter to be able to pull away a semi-comfortable win. Like, I don't think a 10-point win is a blowout. So I could see the Eagles winning like a 34-24 game. And again, if you're the Giants, if your last game of the season ends in a 34-24 defeat to the number 1 seed in the NFC, that's a W season right there. So something along those lines is what I think will happen. But I do have the Eagles edging out the Giants in this one. So either of you can take the podium on this one. Justin, we'll start with you.
Okay. Listen, the Giants are healthy now, and it's something that you haven't seen, especially with a banged up offensive line. They said the Ravens have the Eagles have a banged up offensive line. Lane Johnson has a torn muscle in his abdomen. They're going to have Azeez Ojulari back. Kayvon Thibodeau has been playing out of his mind. They have their secondary. It's just it's a defense that the Eagles haven't seen in a while. And I mean, with that, I'm going to pick the Eagles to cover. I just don't see the Giants having enough offensive tools to really keep up. It's an 8-point spread if you're looking now. It'll be close maybe in the first half. I think the Eagles pull away. I just really don't think that they have the horses to keep up with this Eagles team. It was a magical run for the Giants. No one predicted this, and if you did, you're lying.
Or you won a lot of money if you actually bet it.
Well, but yeah, there's a lot to look forward to in New York if you're a Giants fan. But this is where I think the buck comes to a halt here, and they can't. There's something about the link, something about the way the Eagles have played them in the last 10 years. They're not going to win.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
That's fair. That's fair. So as Justin has the Giants going down an Old Town Road out of the playoffs, Rick, what do you have for this one, Eagles or Giants?
You know where I'm going.
You really think
exactly?
He's got to go to sleep tonight. You know.
Well, see, here's the thing. So, if I'm correct about this, and generally speaking, I'm usually not correct about this, but if I'm correct about this, the last 2 times the Giants won a wild card game in the playoffs, I think they won the Super Bowl.
Yep, that is correct.
And I think in order to do that, they beat the number 1 seed at some point in both that times. Run to the Super Bowl.
Yes, both times.
Yeah. You don't need to do that, technically.
No, but I'm saying they did, though.
I know.
You don't need to, but yeah. Why would it stop now? Nothing would make this a better season than for Philadelphia to be the city of brotherly love and the city of trash football fans to lose to the New York Giants in the divisional round. And by the way, for anybody who's listening who says, "Oh, it's Rick, he's the kiss of death," you know I went 6-0 last week. You know I won all 6 games last week. The run's continuing, boys and girls. New York Giants.
Last week? Good for you.
I did win all 6 last week. Thank you. I still have the Cole Strange jersey in my car, but I still won all 6 games.
Well, you're not wearing it. I want to see. I didn't know.
Super Bowl show.
Okay.
I said I'll wear it on the Super Bowl show. We can wind back the tape and record.
Also at the draft.
Well, I also have a Keyshawn Johnson jersey. I might wear and tear to shreds on draft day, depending on how that goes in the first round.
For our mock draft, you're wearing the
yes,
jersey.
Absolutely. I am picking the Giants in this one. I think there's enough there. And again, this Giants team is totally healthy, hitting on all the right cylinders. Eagles have not faced this team when they're fully healthy. Let's see it. Give me the Giants in Philadelphia.
Okay. I mean, also to add insult to injury for your scenario, it would be the Giants finally winning for the first time in a decade at that stadium in the playoffs. It'd also be a real stick in the craw for the Eagles fans. So absolutely. that would be a big one as well. All right. Moving on to the last game for us to predict. Cowboys 49ers. I would start with Rick, but I know he's going to pick with the Cowboys because he's going with all the upsets here, obviously. So just no. Rick,
Excuse me. Excuse me.
I mean, that's what you get for picking all upsets so far.
The number 1 quarterback in the NFC.
Lines courtesy of our friend at
where?
You know what? There you go. Our friends at Caesar Sportsbook. Rick, you can continue your predictions. 49ers, Cowboys. Who you think?
Oh, you got rid of him? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
temporarily. I got the pink slip. Oh, no.
No
more joking around.
You missed your cue again.
Yeah, seriously. Number 1 quarterback in the NFC. Dallas, I think, shot their shot last week. This San Francisco team is just too good. Give me the Niners at home.
Agreed. I am also going San Francisco in that endeavor. I just think they're too good. Like this team is really good. Justin, are we getting? This would be the first hat trick of any of these predictions in this round. So are you going with the 49ers or are you going to go with the Cowboys?
I don't know. I don't play tennis. I'm going with the 49ers.
Hat trick is hockey.
I know. I was making a joke.
Or soccer.
I was waiting to get kicked off again. Iceman over here. Yeah, no. I'm picking the 49ers.
Yeah, I think it's the safest pick of the 3 of them.
It is.
Then again, because I'm here, the other 3 could have been safe picks, but this one's just the easiest one, I think.
Indubitably. Now, our superb owl predictions, ladies and gentlemen, before we finish the show off with the usual rant podium. Boys, who is your... Yes, I'm calling it the superb owl the whole time. Who are you guys going to select as your game matchup, and who is the winner?
Who's starting? Am I starting, I guess?
I'll do it. I'll start. In the AFC,
I had all the way around, but
remind you, you picked Chiefs, Bengals, and Eagles 49ers. So don't go picking the Jaguars because you didn't pick them.
I wasn't going to, trust me.
Waterfalls.
I know, right?
Don't go chasing waterfalls.
Stick to the rivers and the lake that you're used to.
I have a rematch. I have a Super Bowl rematch. I have the Chiefs and 49ers duking it out for the Lombardi Trophy again, like a couple of years ago. And my winner, and two-time Super Bowl champion to go along with his two-time MVP award winning. And he breaks the curse. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs win the Super Bowl by a field goal.
What curse?
The MVP hasn't won the Super Bowl in like how many years for the regular season? Whoever wins regular season MVP hasn't won the Super Bowl in...
I don't think I ever
since the year that kicker won it in 1981, since Mark Mosley won it.
I'm pretty sure there's a curse. People make a big deal out of it every single year.
I don't remember hearing it. That's super weird.
Yeah, I know everything about a lot of curses. I haven't heard about that one.
Maybe it's only once or twice.
Cruciatus curse, the Avada Kedavra.
Brady didn't win MVP any of the years he won Super Bowl.
Before I shoot a killing curse at you, Rick. Well, remember the year they went. Think about it, the year they went perfect. They lost to the Giants. The year that Peyton Manning threw 55 touchdowns and won his fourth MVP, they got smoked in that Super Bowl by the Seattle Seahawks. Like Super Bowl winners, and Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years hasn't done it. Patrick Mahomes the year he won the MVP, they lost in the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson the year he won MVP, they lost to the Tennessee Titans, I think, in the divisional round. Who are other recent MVP winners?
Mahomes in 2018.
Well, yeah, I said that.
Matt Ryan, 2016.
28-3.
Cam Newton, 2015.
Lost to the Broncos.
Adrian Peterson, 2012.
Barely made the playoffs.
LaDainian Tomlinson, 06. Sean Alexander, 05. Steve McNair in 03. Barry Sanders, 97. I can just keep going. Maybe Terrell Davis.
Can you go to the other two Brady MVPs like Justin mentioned, like the two other MVPs?
Oh, sure. 07, 10, and 17.
So 17 is the only one I don't know because he definitely didn't win it in 2010 or 07. Like
in 2017, the 2017 NFL season, that was the Eagles beating the Patriots. That was Philly special.
There you go.
Wow.
So is it going back to Kurt Warner then? 99?
I guess.
Because Marshall Faulk in 2000, they didn't. That was Baltimore Giants. It might be going back to Kurt Warner.
Look at that. I'm
this would have been a good trivia question. I wish I thought of it.
Yeah, well, that's your fault.
If you give us like 2-3 weeks, we might forget.
By the way, if the 02 Super Bowl had been differently won, if it was the Raiders instead of the Bucks, Rich Gannon would have been the trivia answer because he won MVP.
Yeah.
Where the hell has that gotten him?
And got properly smoked in that Super Bowl.
Talk about defense.
Trust me, John Gruden did not make a defense. That Buccaneers defense was going to destroy Rich Gannon no matter what. Yes. By the way, do you remember who won Super Bowl MVP that year, Rick?
Dexter Jackson.
There we go.
Come on now.
All right, my prediction aside, Chiefs over 49ers for myself. Either of you could take it.
I'll go because Justin looks like he's reading something. As tempting as it is to pick a Giants-Jaguars Super Bowl, just to throw more confusion and confuzzlement into everything. The odds-on money there says Bills 49ers, I think. I'd love to see a Bills-Giants Super Bowl too. I'd love to see the Battle of Trent Baalke, Jaguars 49ers would be just hilarious. I know they make Jordan cry and think about his life entirely.
I'll be so pissed.
But of the four teams that are there, I have to go Bills 49ers. And honestly, I think this is the time where the run continues. Let San Francisco win one more time. I'll go Brock Purdy goes undefeated and wins the Super Bowl and promptly retires. Because it can't get any better than that.
I don't know if he'll retire. I think he's got a lot of money.
I mean, he could win like 3 more.
Well, I mean, but he'll lose a game. He's undefeated currently. So.
He could also eventually get a big-time contract and have generational wealth for years to come.
Yes. But he's undefeated. So if he loses a game, the luster is gone.
Okay, well, the Buffalo curse continues. The Bills still have their demons, according to
Tyler Bass, wide right.
So, Rick, you'd rather go 10-0 in the NFL
And make like $800K.
And go 10-1 and make $15 million, which is not even a regular like starting quarterback contract.
Well, I'm going to step out of the room after I say this because I know how it's going to go, but I'd rather finish on top.
All right. Well, I'm going to take my Super Bowl predictions.
How did he think we were going to react to that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to pick.
No, sorry, I have to go pick up something. It's my bad. I didn't finish my thought. I apologize. I'd rather be undefeated. I'd rather be undefeated and have that legacy there, than have, because what happens if the next season he does a Trey Lance and breaks his leg in week 2?
He's the one.
Me as a normal person would take the chance and like to make lots of money. So I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, as they have done so several times in the past several meetings, to make it to the Super Bowl. And then I will have the 49ers also make that appearance. So a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl. And then I am going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals to break the curse of quarterbacks not being able to make it back to the Super Bowl and not being able to win. Because if you look up the record of quarterbacks who have lost their first Super Bowl appearance, not a single one has come back and won.
I think that would break a number of curses, actually, because Cincinnati would finally beat an NFC West team in the Super Bowl, because that would happen. They'd finally win a Super Bowl, because that would happen as well. So, yeah, I think that'd be interesting. I'd love to say though that
my bad. To Justin saying that a quarterback who lost their first Super Bowl and never came back to win it. John Elway won 2. He made it to 5.
But he didn't start
his first one, didn't he?
No, he won the last 2 of his career.
Won the last 2?
He started 0-3 in Super Bowls and then went.
Well, then maybe it hasn't happened since John Elway.
I was gonna say like that.
Did he start? Did he start all of those Super Bowls?
It had to have been. He had to have.
I don't know if he did, because that was like they had another quarterback in the 80s there as well with him. So it might have been, I don't know, but I don't think it was. I could be wrong though. I've been wrong before, clearly.
But I mean, to go 0-3 in the Super Bowl, he had to have started at least one of them. So he still, in theory, would have came back and won.
No, if he went 0-3 in the Super Bowls, then I would assume that he was the starting quarterback in at least one of them.
I mean, everyone always brings it up whenever it comes to his legacy that he lost his first 3. I'm assuming he played in all of them.
97, it says that Bubby Brister was the starter.
97 or 87?
97.
Bubby Brister. God, that's a name.
Lost?
They won in 97.
No, it was Elway. It's listed by number. I'm an idiot. Where is the losing team? So they won the 2 in 97 and 98 and 99, and then he retired, right?
Yes.
Yep. He started the game against the Giants in 86.
There you go.
Against Phil Simms.
Okay.
And he lost to the 49ers 2 times after that, because Joe Montana and the 49ers were just a joke.
Because actually, no, falsehood. It wasn't 2 times against the Niners. He went back the next year and lost to the Reskins.
Really?
Yeah, Doug Williams. 42-10.
Yes.
Did he ever face the 49ers?
1990. That's when they lost 55-10. That's when Steve Young came in backup relief of Joe Montana.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But like when the game was already over, because they just tried to Steve Young anyways.
But anyways, since John Elway, we haven't had a quarterback come back, lose their first Super Bowl appearance, and then come back to win a Super Bowl.
It's reasonable. It's reasonable to say that. Because the Bengals have made 3 Super Bowls.
And they lost
2 to San Francisco, 1 to the Rams.
Yeah.
So
there's a curse with the Bengals and the NFC West, particularly the 49ers. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are your superb owl predictions for us. I have Chiefs 49ers. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, and Patrick Mahomes just continues to build what is already a pretty dang good legacy. Rick has Bills 49ers. He has the Bills continuing to have demons following them around into next season, as he has the 49ers winning the superb owl. And then finally, Justin has Bengals 49ers, which, by the way, side note, my personal, I think I picked the Chiefs 49ers because I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. I would love if Joe Burrow could make it to back-to-back Super Bowls. I would absolutely love it. But Bengals 49ers, which would be my personal fantasy Super Bowl. And Justin has Joe Burrow, Joe Cool, Joe Ice winning his first Lombardi trophy. Those are the Super Bowl predictions set at this point. They probably would have been our predictions last week as well, ladies and gentlemen. So
They were.
Context purposes.
I have mine written out.
Yeah. So there we go. That concludes that. That concludes all the fun, all the football. Let's dive straight into the chaos section. Rick, you know how this goes.
I do love the fact, by the way, that we all have the 49ers making it out of the NFC.
Oh, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a pretty accurate statement there. All righty. Let's talk about our rant podium for the week. Number 3 is more of a anger-inducing one for me, but it's also pretty stupid. Conor McGregor has been a topic of conversation in our group chat recently this week. And now he didn't do anything special this week, but there's one fact about him that I want to discuss. Conor McGregor, the man who has so many cars to his name that it's ridiculous, also has a pair of $1,000 crocodile skin shoes that have their own goddamn passport. Because, Jerk, some crocodile skin in some countries is considered like a PETA offense to have it. So you need to have a specific paper to have it. Certain states outlaw the purchase of certain animal skin products like crocodile skin. Therefore, in order to go to these states where he's fighting or appearing, whatever, he needs to have the paperwork and documentation when he's stepping off the plane in his $1,000 crocodile Jimmy Choos. When you want to talk about opulence and want to talk about things that are just ridiculous, that, my friends, ridiculous. Now, do I have a crocodile skin belt? I'll never tell you. Do I have a guitar in a crocodile skin case? I'll never tell you. But I'm not traveling across state lines with those things. Conor McGregor is getting off his private jet in the airport wearing these things. Just stop, Conor. Just stop.
I didn't have that on my Rick Bingo card of stuff that he owned, crocodile skin belt.
You can't win Rick Bingo because I have too many random things that you never thought of. You can't win Rick Bingo. It's like I never have a routine restaurant. You can't win at that because it's nothing there. Number 2, I want to go to something that I mentioned very early on in the show. Let's talk about Iowa, gentlemen. Oh, let's talk about Iowa. The Iowa State Fair was recently. I think it was this past weekend. And there is a tradition at the Iowa State Fair that I think is going to send a shiver down the spine of myself, as well as on Justin's future self, and maybe Jerg's future self, if this ever happens to him. The Iowa State Fair has a contest where basically women stand up on the stage and call out for their husbands. It's called the Husband Calling Contest. And it's a big thing on all these different accounts and all these different TikToks. Now, what is a husband calling contest? Let me read you the transcription of the 5th place finalist yelling. I'm not going to yell because I've yelled enough, but here's what she said. Bob, 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 hurry up. I don't want to be late. Bob. And then the number 3 one just said, Daryl. This is frightening to all men and all men. Then the champion said her husband's name. Can you hear me? You get yourself in here right now. So clearly, husbands, you're in trouble. If your wife tells you, honey, let's go to the Iowa State Fair, run. Run as fast as you can away from Iowa, go to Minnesota or go to Illinois or go somewhere else other than Iowa because it's not going to end up well for you. Which leads me to number 1. Oh, number 1. Good times ahead. Let's go to Canada, gentlemen. Let's go to Canada. There is a lawsuit currently going on by a 26-year-old woman from, I believe, Ontario. Her name is Daniela Lace. And she was guilty of 4 counts of impaired driving causing bodily harm in October of 2020 when she drove her car drunk into a multi-million-dollar home and blew up the home, basically. No the damage to the home, no damage to anybody else there. She is now suing, and I want to make sure I get this correct. She is now suing the Ovations Ontario Food Services because the reason why she is suing and why she drove drunk is because she was served alcohol at a Marilyn Manson concert and therefore drank so much alcohol that she drove impaired on the streets and is suing them for not knowing how much alcohol she had drunk at the time of leaving the arena. It's called self-control, sweetheart. You need to have a little bit of it if you want to drive, and especially go to a Marilyn Manson concert. Self-control is a big thing. So if you're going to claim that you had all this beer, I don't know, maybe did you have water in between any of the beers or any of the alcohol? Maybe, try and dilute everything. Maybe you should have stopped somewhere and gotten some coffee at Tim Hortons because they're awesome, but not at Dunkin' because they suck. But what? Why are you suing the food service? It's not them to babysit you and patrol you for you having too much to drink. It's not on them. It's on you. Know your tolerance level. Know your self-control. And know when to not go to a concert like that. Because let's be honest here. You won't find me at a Marilyn Manson concert, not because I don't like the music, but because that's where all the drunks hang out. It's a little rough, It's a problem for a lot of things. Concerts are fun, but there are some concerts that go a little too far. It's one of those things where it's just like you're not going to win that lawsuit. I'm sorry. Maybe Canada she will because this is Canadian. Things are a little backwards up there. Who knows? Not saying anything bad about Canada. I love Canada, but it's a little bit backwards up there sometimes. So maybe you'll win, but I doubt it. This is just a lesson. Now you're serving 3 years in prison. Maybe you should rethink your life. Rethink your life. Don't drive drunk. Don't cause $15 million in damages. That's American money, I think, not Canadian money. I don't know how much it would be in Canadian loons, but, it's something like that. And most of all, above all else, don't drive drunk. Don't go to Dunkin'. They suck. Don't listen to Adam Rank's podcast or Adam Rank's anything. He's terrible at life. And apparently we discovered this. Some people in Belgium are named Jurgen, so legally by law, I have to now say, Belgium, you're right in my book. You're okay. But some other country that will remain nameless for about a week until I figure out why, you're next up.
Oh, God. Can you stop causing international conflicts?
No!
On this show?
Absolutely not. This is you give me this time to create chaos and have a rant podium. You knew the price, you knew the consequences, and you still went along with it. Whose fault is that?
Well, at least for all my Jurgens in Belgium brothers, you are free of harm from the Podfather and his ranting wrath. So there's that at the very least. As always, phenomenal
Justin,
job.
you're muted.
Justin, you're muted.
For now, I said.
Yeah, for now. Yeah, no, very, very fair, very fair. Fellas, another phenomenal job. Always a pleasure to have you boys on Saturday where we could just, shoot the you know what for a good 2+ hours, have fun and do our thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we also enjoy all of you joining us on this ride as well. Thank you all so much for joining us on yet another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Next week, AFC and NFC championship games. It's starting to get zesty. It's starting to get spicy. We are very close. The Lombardi Trophy inches closer and closer to being delivered to the ultimate winner at the end of the season. And as we await that, please do make sure to join us every single Saturday morning/afternoon, depending on when we record, on this journey that we take to the end of this NFL season, our first NFL season that we will be doing this podcast. We're very excited for that to be completed. And then the offseason comes after that. And boy, oh boy, we're going to be planning some fun stuff to do during that. But that is the future. For now, we shall enjoy the present. Enjoy a fun Saturday and Sunday of football. And remember, join us every week to have some fun, to talk football, and to witness us cause just a good amount of international and domestic chaos. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. We'll see you guys next time.